School board members, please take your seats. Oh, that's so much fun. I know. School board members, please take your seats. Our apologies, we will be starting shortly. All right. This April 14th, 2022 regular meeting of the Fairfax County School Board will now come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence and a performance of the national anthem by the Stone Middle School Panther Jazz Ensemble under the direction of Tracy Maguire. Great job, Panthers. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Chair Pekarsky, is there a special Panther that we
There
should
is a
know
special
about?
Panther that I think would rather not be called now.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
But this may be my favorite band. In order to comply with Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, it is necessary for the board to certify that since the Fairfax County School Board convened a closed meeting on April 14th, 2022, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and only such business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the closed meeting. Is there a motion? Moved by Ms. Sizemore-Heiser, seconded by Ms. Cohen. All those in favor? That is unanimous with one person away from the dais. Agenda item 3.03, announcements. Ms. McLaughlin has submitted a remote participation request form due to a personal conflict. I will call for an approval from in-person members. All those in favor of approving Ms. McLaughlin's request to virtually attend tonight's meeting, please raise your hand. That vote is unanimous with one person away. There's Ms. McLaughlin. If you would like to review a copy of the agenda and any agenda item that is being discussed tonight, the information may be found at the back of the auditorium or on the website at fcps.edu/schoolboard/board docs. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast on Channel 99 and live streamed on the website meeting at fcps.edu/tv/ch99. Item 6.03, award of contract, asphalt milling and paving at Hayfield Secondary School has been removed from tonight's agenda at the request of staff. Item 5.03, award of contract, Falls Church High School renovation has been moved from the consent agenda to the action agenda at the request of a board member. Policy 2100 has been moved from the consent agenda to the action agenda at the request of a board member. I would also like to acknowledge that former school board member Ryan McElveen is joining us tonight, and we are very happy to have you. Please stand up. Thank you. Fan favorite. Agenda item 3.04, appointment of division superintendent. I call on Ms. Sizemore-Heiser for the motion.
I move to authorize the execution and delivery by the chairman of an agreement appointing Dr. Michelle Reed to serve as the division superintendent of Fairfax County Public Schools for the period beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending on June 30th, 2026 on the terms and conditions more particularly set forth in the agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Darnat Koufax. Motion has been made and seconded. Ms. Sizemore-Heiser, would you like to speak to your motion?
You bet I would. I am so honored and excited to make this motion to introduce Dr. Michelle Reed as our new superintendent. Dr. Reed has served as a superintendent of the North Shore School District in Bothell, Washington since 2016. She was previously superintendent of the South Kitsap School District in Port Orchard, Washington. Early in her career, she served as a deputy superintendent, district athletic director, and high school principal in the Port Angeles, Washington School District. She was named AASA National Superintendent of the Year in 2021 for exemplary communications and her work in closing achievement gaps. She also grew up in a military family and has raised 4 children. Welcome, Dr. Reed. We are incredibly happy to have you here today, and I know you will do amazing work as our next superintendent. And as we welcome Dr. Reed, I wanted to also thank Dr. Braybrand for his many years of service and loyalty to FCPS. Your positivity, your nuggets of wisdom, and spirit of joy will be greatly missed, and I wish you the best of luck. I wanted the community to know, thank you. We had a long and robust search process that started last fall. It included many opportunities for the community to share their input on what characteristics they wanted in our next superintendent, including a survey, many town halls, community stakeholder meetings in all 5 regions, and a public school board work session. We are fortunate that we were able to have a large group of excellent candidates participate in our process. Among this large, strong group, Dr. Reed was consistently at the top. She impressed us throughout the process with her thoughtful, brilliant, and insightful analysis, her work around STEM and strong academics for all students, and an understanding that our focus must also be on the whole child. I was also impressed at her work on racial and educational justice and inclusion. In addition to her demonstrated support for and deep understanding of LGBTIQI students, students of color, students from various religious backgrounds, ELL students, immigrants, students with disabilities, and those of different gender identity. She was the only one to talk about ableism. She was the only one to talk about ableism and demonstrate understanding of the concepts of neurodiversity. I know when our community gets to know her like we have, they will see all of this and more. Since the day, nearly 2 weeks ago, that this board voted to begin contract negotiations with Dr. Reed as our finalist, it has been a pleasure to get to know her as we work through these last few details to bring her here today. Dr. Michelle Reed has all of the characteristics that will make her an excellent superintendent for FCPS. Not only was she named the 2021 National Superintendent of the Year by ASAA, the School Superintendents Association, she is also nationally known for her work in instructional leadership. She is visionary, bringing to FCPS a 22nd century education philosophy. She thinks big, but customizes those ideas based on the specifics and needs of her district. She has high intelligence and great curiosity. I was consistently impressed by the amount of research and work she did to get to know our system and analyze and propose ideas that could work in FCPS. She had a deep, demonstrated ability to engage with various stakeholders. She spends time to listen to her community, to heal, to bring in student voice. I have received many messages from people in the North Shore District singing her praises. I know that she will do what she did there, bring her well-documented reputation as a healer to bring students, staff, and communities together. She also brings a positive and warm approach, not quite the nuggets of Dr. Brabrand, that will bring our community together. She is full of grace, kindness, empathy, and whip smart, as was said in one of the emails that was sent to me. In short, she blew us away with her keen analytic skill, her desire to be a little more curious with everything she does, and her ability to let her intelligence shine in the most empathetic and warm way. This school board cares deeply about doing right by our students and staff, and we took our job of selecting our next superintendent very seriously. I appreciate that we have a community that also cares deeply about the leadership of our school system, and it's wonderful that we have such engaged community. I have utmost confidence that once this community knows Dr. Reed for the person we know her, they will also love her. I hope that our FCPS community will come together to welcome Dr. Reed and give her that opportunity. I know she is eager to get to know our amazing community. And I will end by saying the best thing for our system, for our students, for our staff, after 2 incredibly divisive years, is to be a little more curious, to be a little more open, to be a little more empathetic, and welcome Dr. Michelle Reed as our next superintendent for FCPS. I cannot wait to work with you in creating that 22nd century education for all of our students in Fairfax County.
Ms. Derenak-Koufax, would you like to speak to your second?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Reed, I am truly excited to be seconding this motion to welcome you as the next superintendent at Fairfax County Public Schools. As our board's top candidate, we knew that when we extended the offer to you on April 2nd, we were getting a visionary educator who is known both regionally and nationally for your outstanding instructional leadership. You've been honored as the 2021 Superintendent of the Year. You humbly accepted this award and acknowledged that it was a team effort that made this happen for you, and it was a team award. You acknowledged your partners in the community, the students, their families, the staff, as well as your school board. A colleague described your unique ability to diffuse polarizing community concerns by stating, Dr. Reed has shown the leaders in our district an alternative approach through grace, skill, collaboration, and love. She consistently brings forward every voice, hears each concern, and commits deeply to ensure that each person within their sphere of influence is in a position to be and to give their very best. Dr. Reed, you are coming to a top-performing, beautifully diverse school system, but we are not without our challenges. In your very first interview with us, you described yourself as a visionary, as an incurable optimist. You will need that here. You stated that students need to be seen, they need to be heard, and they need to be affirmed. You declared, in my daily work, I come prepared, I do my homework, I am not afraid of a challenge, and I've loved this work as a superintendent. We look forward to that. My colleagues and I believe you embody the characteristics and qualifications needed to continue to move Fairfax County Public Schools forward. Today, April 14th, in case you were unaware, as I was not, but I found out that the day is the U.S. National Reach as High as You Can Day. We are all encouraged to reach, on this day, we were all encouraged to reach for our dreams and our goals. And I cannot think of a better day to welcome you into our school system. I look forward to working with you to build community trust and to bring our community together. Welcome to FCPS, Dr. Reed.
Thank you. I'll now open the floor for other members. Ms. Keys-Gamarra?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to delay this vote.
Is there a second?
Is there a second? I'll second.
Seconded by I would like to remind our audience that we are conducting business. Ms. Keys-Gamarra, would you like to speak to that motion?
Thank you. Dr. Reed, I would like to first of all say that what I'm about to say has little to do with you. I have had concerns throughout this process, and as many people know, our community has expressed some outrage. I can't blame them. And quite frankly, I think that much of the concern and the response to that outrage has been, how dare certain groups speak? How dare they get a hold of information? How dare they share something if they were a part of the community panel who leaked? Let me say this, that is the wrong focus. The people who are reaching out to us are our community members. They are our constituents. It is our job to hear them. For a public school system, our school system belongs to the public. So my objection today has to do with the fact that we seem to be rushing this decision. The contract, as well as the announcement, was posted last night. It's my understanding that there's been some advice given that we need to get this over with. But my concern, and I have a list here of the groups that have contacted us, as well as nearly 50 people, most of whom have objections. Some of the same kinds of objections I had through this process. Despite the qualifications of Dr. Reed, I happen to believe that the other candidate was more qualified. My concern is that if I read the list of these people, the NAACP, the Fairfax Association of Black Educators, Pride Liberation Project, and so on and so on. I've been contacted by faith leaders in this community. I've been contacted by concerned citizens and neighbors. I've had lawyers contact me, not because I was giving them information, but because they are involved, because this is their community and they care. It's our responsibility to listen. And to jam this vote through, in my opinion, is sending them a message that they don't matter. I fully respect that I have a different opinion than many people on this board. I listened to people speak tonight, two were of particular note. One broke this down to one candidate being white and one candidate being black. That is the furthest thing from my mind. I have 3 sons, 2 of whom are here tonight, and if I point them out, I won't have a place to live. But they are graduates of Fairfax County Public Schools. And they have told me about the joys and the difficulties. They have told me what was missing. They have told me how they were treated. And it's part of the reason I'm on this board. I also operate as a lawyer, and I represent children every day, and I have done so for nearly 2 decades. I understand what children experience. And so when I walked in that room, I felt that I carried the concerns of each and every one of them. Because yes, when I meet the kids I represent, I do feel a little bit like their mother. And I want to carry their voice. But when we rush through something, and we know that we have had the type of community input, even if we don't like it coming in, it is our responsibility to listen. And so I ask that we consider a delay of this vote. I understand that there has been some advice that perhaps we just get it over with, like pulling off a Band-Aid, and if you feel a few hairs, put some alcohol on it, and it'll be better soon. But I can tell you that the community members that I know feel disenfranchised and they're hurt. And that is why I'm speaking today. I thank you for considering this motion. It probably won't pass, but I thought the 50 or so people and organizations on this paper deserve somebody to mention it. Thank you.
Dr. Anderson, would you like to speak to your second?
Yes. I will briefly like to speak to this. Just like Ms. Keys-Gamarra, this motion is not going to pass, but I think it's important for me to state that this decision that is about to be made this evening is the most important decision that this body can make. It is responsible for determining who the next leader is of our organization, one that I'm very highly invested in because I have 2 kids in this system. Our community has bombarded us with emails, phone calls about this very critical task that we're about to engage in this evening. And many of these statements were shared tonight. They've asked for engagement. They have asked to be heard. I strongly believe that we should afford ourselves the gift of time to reach out to those who have expressed their concerns and to listen more closely before finalizing our decision. I believe we are needlessly rushing into this part of the process. And in doing so, we have discounted the people whom we are elected to represent. The people who have been telling us that they have questions, that they have concerns, and we have not provided ourselves time to address or alleviate those concerns. We have, whether intentional or not, with our timetable, fed into the narrative of not being inclusive or transparent. And that is why I have seconded Ms. Keys-Gamarra's motion.
Are there any members wishing to speak to this motion? Seeing none, I'll take the vote. Oh, Ms. Cohen.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I really respect and appreciate how Ms. Keys-Gamarra and Dr. Anderson are feeling tonight. And I won't pretend to say that I understand your hurt, but I do understand hurt. And I know what it's like to have kids who go through the system and don't feel like we are working for them. Whether they're queer, whether they're brown, whether they're black, whether they're Muslim, whether they're Jewish, we have work to do. And I'm proud of the process that we have undertaken as a collective group of 12 very different people to get to where we are tonight. This is an imperfect system. It's not run by robots. It's run by human beings. We have kids ages 1st grade to 12th grade on this board. To think for a second that they're not every minute of sleepless nights, of trying to make sure that we get this right. There's not a person up here who does not understand how high the stakes are. So I won't be voting to delay. I'm proud of who we chose. And I trust you to get us to where we need to be. And I hope that we're all going to do our best to work together and figure out how in the heck we got here. So I appreciate your motion very much, but I won't be supporting it.
Ms. Tolan?
So I've struggled and struggled and struggled with this. We have worked as a board for hours and hours and hours. For months, we held public sessions. We tried to hear from the public. I'm really hurt that people feel disenfranchised. Ms. Keys-Gamarra and I had a long talk yesterday about how she's feeling and what she thought about the process. I mean, all I can say is I have worked in good faith. I have read resumes. I have interviewed people over and over and over. What we put these candidates through was so intense. And we got to a point where we had 2 incredible, incredible people as we slowly went through the interview process. And the decision was really tough, really tough. We voted as a board, and Dr. Michelle Reed came out on top, fair and square. And I honestly, and I sit here speaking as a white woman, so I know that, people can accuse me of not feeling and not understanding. But I've worked really, really hard at this, and I cannot believe that I am sitting up here with 12 other people that didn't work equally as hard. I just needed to say that out loud. I need you to know where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you. I just want to echo the comments that were shared by Ms. Cohen and Ms. Tolan. I do share the empathy for our colleagues and for members of the public who are feeling hurt, who are concerned about the process. But I also want to really reinforce what both of them said. This board was very, very transparent in publishing what our calendar would be, what our process would be, that it would be a confidential search as we've done in recent memory, and certainly in the 3 searches I've participated in, several before that. It's very common because we are trying to attract the best candidates, and they don't want to necessarily be leaving their districts. And so this is a very big deal when we have strong recruiting companies go out and find strong candidates. And I really want to use my remarks to the main motion to celebrate our incredible finalists. So I really wanted to speak to this particular motion because I appreciate where Ms. Keys-Gamarra and Dr. Anderson are coming from. I respectfully disagree. However, I don't believe that we are discounting the people who we were elected to represent. I don't feel that we have rushed this process or had a lack of transparency. Our calendar, our timeline, our entire process was all published. And this board spent countless days and months involved in this process. And I couldn't be more excited about the finalists that we have before us this evening. But I do want to reassure the public that we were elected, the 12 of us, to make this most profound decision. And that is our elected duty. And I really appreciate how all 12 of us were working so hard at this. And I'm proud of my colleagues for all the time and passion and commitment and effort that was put into this. I admire you greatly. And everyone knows I have different votes than a lot of people that you're going to be seeing tonight. And I think that speaks volumes too. And I'll be speaking to that in the main motion. So again, I believe all 12 of us care deeply. And we recognize that sadly there are hurt members in our community, but I don't want them to lose faith for a minute of our commitment to recognize and serve and care about every single person in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Corbett-Sanders?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was not planning on speaking to this motion, but the reason I felt that I needed to is because I will not be supporting this motion. And the reason I am not supporting a delay is because of the extensive conversations that have gone on within this board and within the community. And by having a delay tonight, it's not going to change the outcome. And so when we know that the outcome is not going to change, then we should go ahead and do the business of this board. And that doesn't mean that I don't have great sympathy and empathy for the comments that have been made thus far. But I want to make it very clear. Part of the angst that has occurred is because of not having a full dialogue with the community, but more importantly amongst ourselves. And so instead what happens is then all of a sudden we are not necessarily as, we don't come across the way that I know this board wants to come across. I also want to ensure this community that every member of this board takes their job seriously and has been incredibly discerning as they have looked at how they make a decision and how they dissect the data, how they analyze what's before them, and then how they come to a decision. That doesn't mean you get unanimity, but what it does mean is that you have thoughtful consideration of issues that come before this board. And so I really appreciate the concept of delay, but I don't think that it serves this board to delay tonight.
Ms. Keys-Gamarra?
Yes, I want to clarify a few things. I'm not trying to change the outcome. There are people in this community who always feel like they're not heard. And they're always in certain groups, and and a lot of them have supported this board. It hurts me, it pains me to think that they have to feel that way again. I will also say that I know to this board, as I explained my position, I said some things that were not understood. And I think that people's feelings may have been hurt. But I would like to explain why I made some comments, and I won't outline what they were. We are not hiring experts. We didn't receive any particular training for this. We're not the HR department, and we don't know necessarily how to avoid pitfalls. I happen to have done a lot of reading and studying because of my work with respect to the psychology of decision-making, patterns of hiring, the history of FCPS and our hiring issues, etc. But we really didn't get, I believe, we were at a bit of a disadvantage because we had not been given parameters to try to have an equity lens in place in everything that we do. That doesn't mean people weren't trying on their own, but it was sort of our own thing. So I don't know if that cleared anything up. I'm looking at Ms. Pekarsky's face. But the fact of the matter is, I hope from this day forward we can have some real honest conversations. I can tell you there's been things that I kind of try to put boundaries around because honestly, they're a bit hurtful. And I know some people probably don't even know that they were. But I have to say, we had one speaker tonight who said it quite well, at least some of the things, how people feel, Ms. Leslie Houston, tonight. So thank you, Leslie. And I just want the board to know that nothing I said was intended to be name-calling. It was intended to challenge us. We've got so much in front of us, and we have to equip ourselves for this very hard and important work, intentionally. Intentionally. That's how we make a difference. Thank you.
Ms. Omesh?
So I want to thank my colleagues for sharing their truths. I think there's an importance to sitting with discomfort and understanding one another regardless of what perspectives we come with. Obviously, picking off of Elaine, I am not a white woman. I know I'm not black, but I also come from a community that is deeply, deeply skeptical of systems and institutions after 20 years of deliberate and intentional marginalization. And so I say that because I spent the first year being on this board highly skeptical of every staff member, of every leadership team member, Dr. Brabrand knows this well, and seeing the implicit bias in everything. And I present that because I can understand what it means to come at this deeply distrusting, and for rightful reasons. But that precisely is actually a reflection of where we are as a society today. I actually was just, the speaker mentioned, I have no idea how she knew, but I was just talking to Ms. Keys-Gamarra about how I was thinking for a while and struggling with the idea, should I bring a motion to delay, should I not? How do we validate the community's concerns and help bring people along to bring healing through a decision that is meant to be a unifying process for our community? And I ultimately decided to recognize it and mention it in my statement, which I'll make a little bit later to kind of culminate where we are. But I chose against it largely because I knew the majority wouldn't be there for it, but I also knew that everyone came through intentional and thoughtful reasons for why they arrived at that place. And I was hopeful that we can choose healing tonight. Which requires intentionality, and I recognize that. And we have to commit to certain steps to making sure that we earn the trust of our community and work on addressing the wounds that have been a part of our country's history for the past centuries. So I ask us to reflect on how we came to this moment. We're no different than the rest of this country and the challenges that we're facing. And frankly, I'm going to abstain from this motion. Not because because I'm stuck. I'm stuck in a place where we're not having a conversation anymore. And I want to make that precise point. That to polarize ourselves and to put ourselves in a place where a certain vote means a certain thing about who you are and what you believe in, outside of the context and the nuance of what is required to understand one another and move our system forward, is not moving any of us forward. And I hope that that abstention testifies to the idea that this is not a way to have a conversation. And I'm hopeful, and this is not to invalidate any perspective or voice that has come forward today, because there is rightful and righteous anger. But I'm hoping that we can come to a place where we do come together tonight to support a leader who will move us forward in a proper direction. So I hope that we can reflect on that. And again, these are the growing pains of exactly what we're witnessing across this country with racial, class, you name it, divides.
Thank you, Ms. Somesh. Dr. Anderson, your light is on. Did you want a second go? Okay. I will just make one short comment. I will not be supporting this postponement. I very much appreciate you sharing how you feel and your perspectives, and all of our community who has come forth to speak. It is very difficult when people that you have often worked with, listened to, and very highly respect come into a position where you have very, very different opinions. And what we do at that point as elected officials, and that balance of, what is the listening to the community, and when is it time that we have to make a decision because it's the right time. For me, this is the right time. Dr. Reed is an exceptional candidate who from the very beginning underwent a rigorous process. Speaking to our recruiter just before I came here tonight, his words was the most robust process. Professionals in recruitment who do these searches across the country. And I'm confident, I'm proud of our process, and there is always opportunity to hear and to find common ground. And I believe Dr. Reed will be our next superintendent tonight after our vote. And I know that she's eager to listen to all of you, as we are every day. And I think we will all together be proud to call her the next superintendent of FCPS once we have that opportunity. So thank you. And with that, I will take the vote. All those in favor of postponement of the vote tonight, please raise your hands. All those opposed? All those abstaining? That motion to delay fails. We will now go back to our main motion. Are there any school board members who would like to speak to the main motion? Ms. Marin.
Well, I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Michelle Reed here tonight, and as she has done throughout the rather exhaustive and perhaps exhausting candidate interview process, she is before us with enthusiasm, focus, and professionalism. In my career in public policy, I've often heard the term thought leader thrown around, but it's really an accomplishment that so few people can actually obtain because it requires a discipline of curiosity, of investigation of data, of the calculated risk, of innovation. And Dr. Reed is a thought leader. She has exhibited this at each opportunity during the candidate review process, including in her remarks references to research, and not in an academic way, but in a practical way that we can use here. And for myself as a school board member who's also a parent, and a parent with children in elementary schools, I certainly approach this process with my own children in mind, their friends in mind, the children in their grades, my colleagues' friends. So, reflecting the values of the over 130,000 constituents that I represent, I took that into the utmost seriousness. And this is a really, I've never had quite an experience like this to interview for such an elite and important position. So I remark, Dr. Reed currently lives on another coast in a different time zone, and yet she has exhibited that she already knows the data about Fairfax so intimately. And I have heard her voice her eagerness to see and experience for herself that data as it comes to life through our students, our staff, and our communities. I also really appreciate that she understands the value of play. She's an amateur athlete. She helped to grow programs in sports in her schools based on how students could get scholarships to college playing those sports. So I think that she brings a well-roundedness not only of STEM and academics, but that value of being healthy, living healthy, and being curious. So I think of Dr. Reed like this. I think that her work thus far has been a pilot. and I think she's going to blow the lid off the innovation when she gets here to Fairfax. I believe that Dr. Reed will lead Fairfax County into fulfilling the birthright that is public education in America. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marin. Dr. Anderson.
Thank you. I do have to agree with my colleagues who spoke earlier in that we take this job very seriously. We do. Each and every one of us has done this during this process. And it is with that framework that I do regretfully share that I will not be able to support this motion. To be clear, I believe this board, by our recruiters, have provided us with numerous qualified candidates. It was a good problem to have. It really was. But in my many years of hiring as a school principal who had to open up a brand new school and to staff that, I have hired hundreds and hundreds of people during my 17 years of being a school leader. And I always look at the options that are provided to us very, very carefully and make sure that all of my questions are answered. Unfortunately, I still have outstanding questions in this case. The question of fit really still continues for me. It's been said by many that experience matters, and FCPS has challenges that are significant, size, scope, demographics, you name it. We could sit here all day to list them. And I would like to see an established record of addressing those obstacles. As I shared earlier, the most significant concern for me right now is not taking the time to bring our community along. We've had student walkouts today. We had a rally out front today. All of those are cries for help, cries for engagement, cries for inclusion. We should have taken a beat to do that. We absolutely should have taken a beat to do that. I am not saying, and just like Ms. Corbett-Sanders, I don't think it would have impacted the outcome, but we didn't even put the effort to bring folks along. And that's very disappointing to me. The issues that have been raised in the community based on all of the correspondence that we've received, testimony that took place tonight, I would have appreciated a little bit more time to stop and reflect on that. I would have liked to investigate some of these things that have been raised, and I don't think I've had the time to do that. No doubt, again, everyone on this board has worked very hard during this time. It's been a lot of hours spent on it, and Ms. Omesh is very right in terms of the work that we've put in. And I respect your decision, and I want mine to be respected as well. While I will not be voting in favor of your appointment, Dr. Reed, I do wish you success. My children are in the system. I have a child who's going to be in the system for many, many, many years because she's only a 4th grader. And I need for her to get what I hope for all of our kids, which is to be seen, which is to be included, which is to be taken care of. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Keys-Gamarra.
I just spoke a lot. I'll let other people go, just if you don't mind. Thank you.
There are no other lights. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you. Well, I really want to bring the joy that I think tonight reflects. And Dr. Reed, I am so sorry to not be there in person. I would give anything to be there with everyone because I couldn't be more excited about you as our next leader. As my colleague, Ms. Derenak Koufax knows, when we selected our former superintendent, Karen Garza, she just reminds me so much of you. She was wickedly smart and had served as superintendent at multiple school districts where she really learned so much along the way. Like you, she came from smaller sized districts, and yet she came here and absolutely shined. So great leaders know how to bring their great leadership to scale. Our current county executive, Brian Hill, also comes from James City County, which is much, much smaller than Fairfax. And he too has shown his great leadership and brought it to scale. But, you know, Dr. Reed, one of the things that I wanted to really emphasize tonight for our community is that, first of all, I haven't had an inbox overwhelmed by concerned residents. I've had some, but I think it's because unfortunately they just got information that is not standard in our process. And so people are asking questions out of confusion. So I do want to also share this for the community. Not only is Dr. Reed brilliantly smart, she understands project management, she understands change management. She brought forth in all of her interviews and her work a depth of knowledge to the point that it hand cramps, writing notes from all of the wealth of information. Dr. Reed not only
Uh-oh. All right, well, we'll let Ms. McLaughlin have another go at it when she reconnects. Ms. Tolan.
So I also had kids that went all the way through Fairfax County Public Schools. I've been a member of this community for over 25 years and was a staff member for FCPS for many years. So the forward direction of the school district is very, very important to me. I feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity to interview so many qualified and inspirational candidates for the role of FCPS superintendent. And I thank our recruiting firm for doing a good job of bringing these candidates to us. They made our job very difficult. Each candidate had strengths and weaknesses. And as we as a board went through 3 rounds of intensive interviews, the board focused on those areas of strengths and weaknesses with our questions to try to feel comfortable. I know we're at a point now where we have healing to do with our community, and I'm very happy to move forward and be a part of that. And from what I know about Dr. Reed, she's very happy to be part of that too. A vote tonight is not a vote for one candidate or another. I want to make sure that's clear, that's in my mind. The vote tonight is a vote to say whether or not Michelle Reed is a good candidate to be our next superintendent. Dr. Reed brings to us extensive knowledge and a real passion for the study of educational best practices. She recently spoke on a re-imaging school post-COVID panel with thought leaders such as Tony Wagner and Posse Selberg. She's a listener and a community builder and a collaborative thinker. She grew up in a military family, like so many of our families in FCPS. We'll be celebrating them tonight. She's bilingual, has experience working with labor unions, and has experience across many jobs within school districts. And I, of course, am happy to welcome another science teacher and STEM advocates to our ranks. As a community, now is the time for us to gather behind Dr. Reed and support her as she takes the reins of FCPS. We need to give her a fair chance and get to know her. We have many challenges that face us in FCPS, but we have many strengths to bolster and to celebrate. It is time for us to move forward as a community and collaborate with her to make sure FCPS remains as a premier school district and grows in the use of innovative and best practices across instruction, budgeting, food and nutrition, facilities, use, etc. Welcome, Dr. Reed.
Thank you, Ms. Tolan. Ms. Keys-Gamarra, would you like to go?
Be waiting for me to speak and then they're speaking.
Do you want a chance or no?
I do want a chance.
Okay,
but
go ahead.
Okay, so I have to acknowledge how our community has been feeling. And as I said, I have done quite a bit of research. I actually had an opportunity to speak about how people make decisions and why, and the history, how history impacts those decisions. And so in that regard, I think that is probably where I had the hardest time, because to some extent this was, the research bears this out to some extent. But I will list what I'm concerned about and why I won't be raising my hand, but I offer a caveat. I have significant concern about you coming from a very small district where the demographics are not necessarily the same as ours. I have concerns about the fact that schools were closed for a significant amount of time, and that's something we can't do here. I have concerns about the fact that we received significant community input, and I put a lot of weight on what we heard. So let me outline where I am. I feel people twisting in their seats. Raising my hand today means that I am confident that this decision is the best for our community. Because of the concerns I just mentioned, I don't know. I certainly hope so. Raising my hand means that I have confidence that we have heard the community and honored their ownership of this school system. I have to tell you, I'm really not sure. Not just because of what was stated afterwards, after the decision leaked, but because of things that were said during the process, legitimately. Raising my hand means that we have reached a unanimous decision that reflects the concerns of all constituents that we represent as a board. Unfortunately, I cannot confidently answer each of these statements in the affirmative, and it is important to convey the right message to my community, our community. I believe this is not a question of whether I think you're good. I believe it's a question of whether I thought you were the best coming out of that, with all of that in mind. And I believe it's my responsibility to convey that to the community. And the reason that I have that responsibility is because it is our job to hold the superintendent accountable. And I take that very seriously. I mention these issues because I want you to know people will be looking because of those issues. It's our job. I mentioned accountability. While I do not agree with today's decision, and I've made that very clear, I will do everything I can to make FCPS successful. I am worried about the learning curve. It's a big jump from 22,000 to 180,000, and I know my colleagues believe that, that doesn't mean much, but it means a lot to me. Leadership in this role means that I must speak the truth on every matter to the best of my ability. I've tried today. I used a lot of words to try to reach that goal. And I am conveying concern that we have not listened to marginalized communities. That has weighed heavily on my heart. And we have not addressed concerns that I believe are important to the community at large. There have been some things that have come out that we never really sought to get the answer. But I will work to make sure that every parent, every student, every community is heard. That's part of the reason I'm speaking today. Because those who have concerns, I want you to know that there are people on this side of the dais who hear you and will be looking out for your interests. Some of my colleagues may not appreciate how I'm sharing information. But while I had no part in what has happened in the community, I also understand that the school system belongs to the public. It would be nice if everybody played by the rules and spoke to us nicely. But too often that doesn't happen. In the past, we have recognized that and still listened to those communities. I'm troubled that we're not doing that today. My duty is clear: to advance the purposes of public education for Fairfax County Public Schools, the families and the communities at large. We do not need a unanimous vote to work toward that goal. Whether we agree or not, raising my hand means that I have confidence that I have to know that it is in the best interest of every child. I pray that it is, and it will work. I will work toward that goal after having expressed with full disclosure today, I hope, in a way that is not disheartening to you at all. This is my responsibility. This is how I work to fulfill my duty and how I work to maintain the public trust. that I hold dearly. Thank you.
Ms. McLaughlin, have you logged on again? Oh, yeah. Before we
Yes,
go on, I recognize Ms. Cohen.
I'm so sorry to go out of turn. I just wanted to, we have the most amazing, I just lost my gymnast. Sorry. I appreciate so much. I know this is a big deal, and I don't want anybody to feel like we're trying to shortchange it. But I also know that we have state champion students who came here to be recognized from the Hayfield basketball team, the Hawks, and the Lake Braddock gymnasts are hopefully somewhere out there in the hall. And the amazing folks who came here to celebrate Month of the Military Child. I just don't want, this is a lot, and I totally get it, and I just want you all to know we appreciate you. We can't wait to celebrate you. My God, if you want to leave right now, I completely understand. But we did just want to take 2 seconds, if it's okay, to say to the Lake Braddock Bruins and their and the state champion Lake Braddock gymnasts. And here comes the Hayfield Hawks basketball team.
Hey, Hayfield Hawks, state championship. We are so proud of you.
Without objection, we do apologize to our students. Adults like to talk a whole lot, and we are taking a little bit longer than normal. We would like to invite you, however, if we could take a quick pause up here with us so we can at least get a picture, and we will be rescheduling the formal recognition at another time. Without objection of my colleagues. Thank you. Yes, let's do the... Yeah. Folks, we will have to do this quickly. If we could have the basketball team, please. The kids have to leave to go because they have school in the morning. That is why we had to have an interruption. Our apologies.
Thank you, Chair Pekarsky, for your indulgence.
Let's get started. What we've learned in the last 2 years is that flexibility and pivoting, Dr. Braybrand, is the way to success. We will get back to our motion. Do we still have Ms. McLaughlin? Ms. McLaughlin, I call on you for your comments.
Yes, Ms. Pekarsky, I just wanted to finish my remarks since I lost my connection. I want to just again end on a very positive note here. If I had any concerns that we didn't have a successful search, I have always said in my prior 2 searches and this one as well, that we take our time and we make sure we get the most exceptional leader possible. And that's why I've been so excited tonight, because I truly believe that Dr. Reed is exceptional. I may not always agree with decisions she will make going forward, and even some decisions she's made at her current school system, I may not have agreed with. But what I do know this is she is incredible in her ability to look at data, research, science, engage and collaborate. And she understands issues at an incredible depth. And so what I do know is that just like prior superintendents who have come from multiple districts, they bring it to scale. Lubbock, Texas was 35,000 students. Dr. Garza had no problem bringing it to scale. And that's why I keep emphasizing that. It's not just a matter of what the board of 12 assessed in terms of our search process, and it was very comprehensive, and we had incredibly highly qualified candidates. So Dr. Reed reaching the top is because she is that exceptional. And being recognized by the National School Superintendents Association, being recognized for the various national boards and councils that she serves on are all due to her intellect and the respect that she holds at a national level. So I'll conclude because it is late at night, and trust me, everybody, it's a lot later for me than all the rest of you in that auditorium. But I'm just excited, thrilled, and I look forward to reassuring our community that we, the board, did our due diligence. We, the board, did the job that you all elected us to do, which is to make important decisions. And we, the board, did follow our process absolutely in engaging our community in the way that we could and said we would. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was done outside of what we promised we would do. And tonight is a moment for celebration. And I look forward to celebrating with Dr. Reed in person when the next opportunity presents itself. To my colleagues, thank you for indulging me. And again, I'm sorry for the connection issues.
Thank you, Ms. Corbett-Sanders.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for a couple of reasons, including being indulgent of us allowing our young athletes to jump to the head of the line, which is always appropriate here in Fairfax. When it comes to students, they get first up, and so thank you. As you all know, this has been a terribly difficult decision for this whole board. I appreciate the discernment that each and every one of my colleagues has brought to this decision. It is the most important decision that a school board undertakes and impacts everything we do as a system and impacts each of our students in ways that we know and ways that we do not yet know. As stewards of a $3.3 billion entity, we know that FCPS is both a complex business entity and an academic center of excellence. We also know that Northern Virginia is chosen by large and small businesses and families to relocate to this jurisdiction because of the excellent educational opportunities available to them here. This board had the opportunity to look at a wide range of candidates that applied for this position through our excellent executive search firm. I very much appreciate the work of GR Consulting in helping us navigate this process. I know that individuals made their decisions based on the information provided to them, an understanding of the needs of their individual communities, the Fairfax community as a whole, and input from our community panels, and 3 interviews with excellent candidates. And I very much appreciate, Dr. Reed, that this is your 3rd trip across the country in, I think, 3 weeks. So, we know that the process has been extensive. And the candidates brought to us by our search firm had great accomplishments, each in their own right. Dr. Reed has been recognized by our peers as the National Superintendent of the Year, and it's an incredible accomplishment. I know that the families of the North Shore District appreciate her service. Her home state of Washington is very proud of her. And she has served her community well and deserves the respect accorded her accomplishments. With the recent redistricting, Mount Vernon is made up of almost 130,000 residents. We lost a few. And it is similar in size to the entirety of the North Shore District in students attending 6 high schools. We also have 3 centers serving the unique needs of our special education population and students who need a smaller academic setting. We have schools that have almost 3,000 students, and we have schools that have 250. We have 1,500 military-connected youth attending the Fort Belvoir primary and upper schools on Fort Belvoir. So our needs are vast. The differences are vast. I know that we all want to have a unanimous vote this evening. And I really wish I were able to join that majority. It is with heavy heart that I will be voting no. And my decision to vote no tonight.
Please allow our board member to finish her comments.
My decision to vote no tonight is a difficult one, and it is based on my concerns that center around the ability to scale up from a small school system, smaller than the Mount Vernon district, to a system the size of Fairfax County with 180,000 students. The absence of experience in a large, diverse district, which Dr. Garza did have, and the associated challenges, as well as lingering questions that I have that I will look forward to having a more in-depth conversation with you in the future, Dr. Reed. Having said this, I do look forward to introducing you, Dr. Reed, to the Mount Vernon District, its wonderful schools, and the students that I believe will honor their predecessors in my community, whom have served and continue to serve as the first President of the United States, members of Congress, members of the Supreme Court, and honored military service members. I know that the students you meet in Mount Vernon will be the leaders of this country tomorrow. I also make a commitment to you, Dr. Reed, that I will do everything in my power to ensure that you are successful, because it is utmost important to the children of Mount Vernon and the children of Fairfax County that you are successful and that all of our staff are successful in meeting the unique needs of each and every one of our children. So we have a shared vision of success for every child, no matter where they live. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cohen?
I know anybody who knows me, it won't surprise you that I had a really long list of must-haves in our candidates. And honestly, the first time that I talked about it with my PTA, monthly PTA roundtable, the first thing one of my PTA presidents said is, "What will you do if no one applies?" I really hadn't thought about that, and so then spent a lot of sleepless nights waiting to hear how many people had applied for this job. 72, by the way. people wanted to come and be here and be a part of this system, even as frustrated as many of you in the audience feel with it tonight. And as we whittled it down, there were a few questions that with every candidate's answer that were ones that were deal breakers for me. And one of the big ones was the equity question that we asked. We asked a very open-ended question in the hopes that people would be able to run with how they felt, how they thought, what they had done in their districts. And some people excelled at it, and some people didn't, and interviews are hard. But from the first time that Dr. Reed answered that question, and none of you will be surprised that there were many exclamation points and stars by the answers I liked the best. She weaved equity into every single answer. It wasn't just, do you get the equity question right? It was talking about access and program placement. She talked about participation in sports and the arts and how important, how those were equally important to how kids feel successful. She talked about access to algebra in 8th grade as one of the very minimal benchmarks that a system should be using. She talked about ensuring that kids weren't testing in the afternoon during Ramadan. She talked about making sure that kids didn't miss play auditions, homecoming, band concerts on the Jewish high holidays. She talked about reflection rooms. She talked about even adding cricket as a sport in their district because so many people loved playing it and had brought that love with them now that they were here in our country. She talked about figuring out that 1 in 4 girls will get a scholarship in crew if they row. Well, they didn't have a program, so she decided to build one. Look, nobody's gonna be perfect. They're just not. We're a very, I don't even know. I wish I had a good adjective for where we are right now as a community. I'm sorry you feel that way. So let's work together. So I am excited because I did have some must-haves, and you ticked them all. And I am excited about the vision that you have for redefining what the school system means, for stopping the narrative that is a school system that's based on churning out factory workers, of figuring out what kids are good at and helping them be successful in it, and then figuring out how we help them be good at everything. I believe in you, and I know that you here tonight, that we're putting an awful lot on your plate. But I know that you can rise to the occasion, and that's why we're picking you. So we look forward to the journey, and even the folks who don't want to be on this journey, we're going to figure it out together. It's what we do. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. Are there any other school board members wishing to speak? Ms. Omesh? Mr. Frisch?
Thank you. Excuse me. Nothing over the past 2 years has been easy for this school board. I think that's an understatement. And so I'll be honest, when I say we began this process, I was worried that we'd have trouble finding a qualified candidate to be our next superintendent. As a profession, their work has been incredibly hard over the last 2 years, and there are vacancies for these positions all over the Commonwealth of Virginia, all over the country. So I was thrilled when we received dozens of amazing, qualified, and impressive applicants. Through round after round of interviews with tough, probing questions, I was always impressed with Dr. Reed's answers, not only for the clarity and detail with which she described her work as superintendent, but with her insights about Fairfax County Public Schools. Throughout our interviews with Dr. Reed, she routinely spoke unprompted of the ways she addressed the equity needs of her student body: LGBTQIA students, Muslim students, students of color, English language learners, students with special needs, and more. Her commitment to equity, as Ms. Cohen spoke to, and inclusion was a thread woven through her answers, her accomplishments as superintendent, her commitments to this board. We asked all of our applicants how they would heal a divided community. It says a lot about her character that she told us she would listen and that she would not presume to speak for others whose lived experience is different from her own. She also said that she would work to put the results of those conversations into action. I know Dr. Reed is eager to get to work for Fairfax County Public Schools, and I, Dr. Reed, am eager to work with you as we seek to build a school system that helps all students achieve their potential. Thanks.
Ms. Hamesh?
Okay, this is not going to be short, but bear with me.
Oh, boy.
I said we have to bring healing, right? That doesn't come without understanding. So obviously this is the most critical decision our board has to make. It is the defining vote of our jobs, and as stewards of the system, we have a tremendous obligation to give this the proper thought, heart, wisdom, and intention to do this right. Let me start first by thanking our clerks, Beverly Medeja and Laura Cornell, alongside our tech specialist, Diensen Ho, for their tireless work facilitating this process. Please give them a round of applause. And I want to thank our consultants, Gloria Davis, Gary Ray, and the team at GR Recruiting, as well as our board counsel, Sona Rawari, for their patience and guidance in our process, and our chair and vice chair for putting in more hours than they ever signed up for to facilitate this further, and my colleagues, of course, for coming together despite the surmountable difficulties we continue to have. I also want to recognize and thank Dr. Braybrand for seeing us through a tough few years and for having humility and positivity throughout isolating moments and a difficult process. I cannot express the fullest extent of my appreciation. The day for that will come. But I also finally want to thank Dr. Michelle Reed for her patience and grace and persistence throughout this process, and I'd like to welcome her here. Dr. Reed, welcome to our meeting, welcome to our school, welcome to our community, and to Virginia. So as we come together tonight with every perspective imaginable, I'd like to share some reflections. Like many others, I await the day when our system can have our own Ketanji Brown Jackson, and perhaps one who's raised by our own hands in our own system. And we're close, and we will get there. But understanding today requires more than public discourse and labels and sound bites, and the lack of nuance that those allow. So much is at stake, and we can't run with what we hear without careful thought, because our kids are the ones that ultimately bear the cost. So today I'm asking for a rare commodity in our public arena, and all I can offer you is good faith, hard work, thoughtful consideration, and a track record of sincerity and dedication and advocacy for equity and inclusion in return. I'm not here to dismiss anyone's feelings, nor discredit the multitude of perspectives and insights community members have around how we experience today, the days and weeks leading up to it, and certainly not the years and generations of realities that color today. Today, I'm asking you for nuance. For every single one of us to come to this conversation with nuance and a commitment for better in a way that moves us all forward. This morning, in releasing an equity action plan for our nation, President Biden stated that advancing equity is not a one-year project, it is a generational commitment. Indeed, as a board and as a community, we're grappling with exactly what we see happening all across this nation, and which we observe and so desperately wish can be healed. Our reality is such that people have been underserved, in deep ways and for a long time. Critical needs have been dismissed, ignored, and at best pushed to the margins, and people have had enough. They are tired of waiting, and they are tired of being told it will come. I won't only validate this, I feel this myself, and I'll even add to that in saying that what we have observed today is only the tip of the iceberg and a single subset of so many underserved voices in this county who we may not hear from. Yet we find ourselves here as we steward a system full of loving people with good intentions. And so how do we reconcile that? And where does that leave us? For a combination of factors, some with merit and others completely without, we find ourselves in a conversation where yet again we're polarized. If you vote one way, you're a prejudiced person. If you vote another way, you're an ally. If you vote one way, you're fearless. And if you vote another way, you're a coward. Some are ready, at the moment this vote is taken, to cancel the entirety of the holistic identity of those with whom they disagree. This cannot be how we understand our world, and it certainly cannot be how we teach our children to lead it. It's the same thinking we criticize in those who have no tolerance for anyone who work against equity and inclusion. It's actually the same simple-mindedness we criticize in racist behavior. And so I ask again for nuance. Having taken full advantage of Ramadan and this spiritual opportunity for me where I only had a sip of water today, I've tried to think about how I might lean into courage, into clarity, into humility, and ultimately integrity in what I say to you today and in my vote. I came back to a single question. What is best for children? And what is best for all children? And what I do tonight, and perhaps more importantly, in how I behave here today before you and what I say to you. We have invested as a board in trainings on the state and federal level to understand the best practices of school boards and their relationships with superintendents, to understand that one of the most important and difficult ways that school board members actually make sure our children come first is to stand behind the school superintendent. And the easiest choice for me tonight would have actually been to meet the expectations of those who rely on me and vote without any comment, to save face and to lean into the way that things appear and that well-meaning but misguided perceptions have led us to believe. Another more difficult but also easy choice would have been to vote with the majority and to just stay quiet, to weather the storm in the shadows while people feel dismissed and continue experiencing the pain current perceptions reinforce in our system, because we can. But the hardest choice would be to maintain integrity even when I'm disagreeing with my friends, and to bring nuance into conversations that our whole country is avoiding, ones that are too sensitive, difficult, and deeply personal to have. And look where that's left us. And so let me be the first to say, this process had biases, and biases can lead to double standards. And this, unfortunately, is nothing new. But let me also say that even with accounting for that, I do not, in good conscience, believe that bias determined the outcome today. And let me remind us that insisting that it is, while a projection of true and real feelings and valid wrongs in our history, hurts us and even minorities, especially. That stance, what I believe to be the most honest and detached from myself stance that I present to you today, that I could take tonight, is what I owe all of you, and those who presently agree or disagree in this community, but who are all still part of that one community and the one Fairfax we're building. So we find ourselves at an impasse because we have established certain truths. We've established that those truths are core and unshakable beliefs, that a certain candidate is more qualified, that the community favored a specific candidate, that one was privileged intentionally over another, or that certain voices were prohibited intentionally from a process. Every single one of these is a debatable gray truth. But if we take them to be absolutes in a black and white analysis, we begin to build entire theories around these outcomes that leave us with only one possible conclusion. But we have to go back down that ladder of inference. If we go back down a few rungs to recognize that the ways we perceive, the facts we recall, and the aspects of various leaders we most value are themselves up to debate and are diverse. Some of us are upset with each other for arriving in different places on the highest rungs of that inference ladder, when our very first steps on it from the factual foundations don't align. Some of us are upset with each other for arriving in different places, and we live in a world of alternate facts. So it's important to always go back to that bottom layer for clarity. And before I get accused of gaslighting, the reality the reality is that we can make anything look good and anything make look terrible. We know this all too well in this work, and seeing and observing the attacks on public education for the past 2 years has made that more evident than ever. Everyone has a perspective, and I'll earnestly do my effort to lay out how we might better understand, because it's arrogant and dismissive of me to just tell people they're wrong, too. So if we take a step back, the fact of the matter is that only 12 of us here have the full information of what brought us here today. Through multiple rounds of evaluation and research and investigation. I, for one, have taken this extremely seriously, and this decision has left me sleepless, anxious, and prayerful. When examining data that we presume to be objective, any one of us out there sure knows how framing can guide the conclusion, and more importantly, that a person's worth, potential, and capacity for success and what they're capable of cannot be determined by a single metric or numbers alone. Whether that's a test score in our classrooms, or whether that's a district size in a superintendent. Our board actually did engage in that process on a preliminary level, but our perspectives were not actually that far from where the public is. But like anything, a good decision requires planning through layers of process, further research, and that is what nuance allows us to do. And at the end of the day, I don't disagree there are concerns. I have my own reservations, and the reality is that the work of democracy is always messy, to bring 12 people behind one decision. I'm supporting Dr. Reed today for several exciting reasons. One of which is because she had the most holistic equity responses we've encountered. And this was my stance before any of these concerns fomented. Dr. Reed has the vision to have set up an entire racial justice education department. She spoke to us about how she empowered students through the Student Justice Collaborative to elevate their voice, to be confident in who they are, and to brainstorm solutions for the division. The School Superintendents Association didn't just recognize her as top superintendent in the country because she has a vision and decisive leadership that successfully and safely got her school through COVID, or school system through COVID, but specifically because she had led in equity in unique ways. In addition to her racial equity work, Dr. Reed introduced quiet rooms, and a lot of this was shared, socio-emotional supports that our students critically need. She led before the nation was ready to support transgender athletes who feel limited by gender binaries. She restructured schedules to include Jewish and Muslim families around religious observances, and included cricket and crew to expand opportunity and inspire motivation in a variety of students to feel they're a part of the system. And in so doing, along with other examples, demonstrated an expansive and holistic view of how we think about equity, which is what Fairfax County needs. Are all the outcomes perfect? No, and they're not here either. But these are important starting points. And she didn't stop there. She talked about the importance of advanced math offerings for all kids, where she shifted numbers from 48% of kids in advanced math to 82%, projected to be 90% by the end of the year. And she brought an expert to review course-taking patterns to ensure biases in them don't exist, something our board has just started to do. The scope of equity in candidates, and the conversations we had with them was understood only by very few. And Dr. Reed shared that she knows equity is not giving others an advantage, but it's removing barriers. When asking her to analyze our work and give us preliminary thinking around where she might start, Dr. Reed actually started off by saying, I was shocked to see you have a single person responsible for equity in a division this size. And that's something I and people on this board and people in this audience have been pushing for and advocating for. And the perceptiveness around that need is important to recognize. Again, did bias influence the process? Of course. But has it been part of nearly every process and decision in our system, in the way our nation works, and in any human project? Also, of course. But was it how we got here today? I honestly and sincerely believe no. But I do believe that Dr. Reed is committed to righting wrongs, and that she relies on data, which makes it imperative to do so, and impossible to ignore. And I'm asking her today and publicly to commit among her first steps in the role to build relationships with those who are concerned, and perhaps to commission an equity audit of our division, one led by experts who have trust in the community to begin examining where we can work on these challenges. Because, as someone we've met not too long ago said, and in the words of Stephen Covey, change moves at the speed of trust. And that's just on equity, because there is so much more to share and to celebrate about her. Dr. Reed is a value add in that she confers with national and international experts in education on a regular basis, and she lives between the academic and practical sides of the work, providing an imperative feedback loop that facilitates innovation through a reliance on data and research, with understanding the realities on the ground and connecting with students and stakeholders who are impacted. She's an immigrant, she's a scientist, she's a military child, and brings a combination of heart and competence to the job. She's a global thinker and can model the imperative of learning more languages than English in a global community. And in tough times, Dr. Reed has brought experts in her own division to build consensus around board members and important stakeholder groups, and has expressed her commitment to interest-based bargaining that makes everyone feel that they can win. Our consultants invited the public to provide input in October and hosted the first stakeholder meeting 5 months ago in November. Thousands upon thousands of people were invited through public forums, the survey, town halls, and individual meetings. And we were so lucky to have groups from all walks of life actually join. Our board engaged with data experts to analyze these findings to determine which qualities were the most important to this community, and our task was to choose accordingly. We didn't all agree at first. We had our favorites, and we used tools to help reconcile hours and hours of conversation to build consensus. And our board arrived at similar conclusions repeatedly, all of which were consistently expressed even before the community panel. As a group, we agreed that all of our top candidates were exceptional, and today we are here to support and celebrate Dr. Michelle Reed for the sake of our kids and for the sake of every kid in this system. So Dr. Reed, welcome. Thank you for coming to Fairfax. You have an exceptional leadership team and an improving board that are ready to embrace you and bring healing and leadership to champion our kids. I'm very excited to work with you.
Thank you, Ms. Somesh. Well, I get to follow that. Before I offer my comments, I'd like to speak directly to Dr. Reed. Nothing is easy in Fairfax. But I am sorry. I am sorry. Because you deserved a much warmer, better welcome than we were able to give to you tonight. And it is my opinion that none of this has to do with you. You are an exceptional educator. Exceptional. And those who strive for excellence never settle for anything else. And as a mother who has 1 FCPS graduate and 5 kids in this system, I'm going to be around for a long time, and I'm entrusting you without reservation from the very beginning of this process, in fact, with the education and the care of my children. And to help you, we have incredible, incredible staff, the best of the best in the country. And we have families who care deeply, as you've heard, and who I know will be partners with you once we have the opportunity. And with that, I'm going to offer my comments. Of course, I am honored and delighted to have our finalist here for Superintendent of Schools as selected by this school board with us. As we begin writing the next chapter for Fairfax County Public Schools in partnership with this community. Dr. Michelle Reed exemplifies the critical characteristics of servant leadership in every way and is driven by a vision for public school that is resolutely student-centered. A vision not for what education is today, but what it could be, what it must be for our kids who will be the leaders of tomorrow. She holds in the highest regard the integral role that healthy and trustworthy relationships play in the work of a school division to facilitate success for all students. Not my words, but those of her family and those who have worked with her. It is a testament to her focus on collaboration and results-driven work for students that she earned the 2021 highest recognition for superintendent, not only from the state of Washington, but also nationally, the National Superintendent of the Year Award. Dr. Reed has also been a leadership facilitator at the University of Washington Center for Educational Leadership and the Harvard Institute for School Leadership. The Metro Seattle Area School Division of North Shore is regarded as the gold standard for public education in the region. As superintendent of that division, she brokered connections and partnerships across 2 cities and 3 counties in the best interest of students. Dr. Reed has long displayed her passion for STEM education through her expertise as a science educator for courses that include physics, chemistry, and math, as well as physical education, where she kept her eye on the ball as a coach for school teams and director of athletics. As a school division leader, she brought access to algebra to all students by 8th grade. Important because in addition to being a gatekeeper class that students must complete to go on to higher level math and science, civil rights and education innovator Bob Moses has called math proficiency and early access to algebra a gateway to equality. Dr. Reed is also a global citizen, a bilingual German immigrant, and the child of a military family, both as a child of a service member and the mother of one. Perhaps then, it's no surprise that the gains for English language learners under her leadership in North Shore are changes that we are eager to see replicated in Fairfax County Public Schools. In her striving for equity and excellence for all students in parallel, her school division has opened fully inclusive elementary schools as state university partnership demonstration sites for effective special education practices, opened an innovation lab in high schools, expanded dual language and dual credit programs, and reimagined and redefined the gifted program with a sustainable model for an equitable program that resulted in a 600% increase in historically underrepresented students participating in the program after restructuring without changing qualification criteria. In my conversations with Dr. Reed, and we have gotten the opportunity to have quite a few in the last few weeks, as part of the interview process and the contract negotiations, I have been impressed by her early depth of knowledge about the challenges we face here in Fairfax Public Schools, her integrity, and her eagerness to work on behalf of our students with everyone in this room and in Fairfax County. I too share her eagerness, and I look forward to this vote, for casting this vote, and I will do everything I can to ensure that you are successful, that we are successful, because that is what the students and the families in Fairfax County Public Schools deserve today and every single day. And with that, the motion is on the screen, I hope. The motion before us is to authorize the execution and delivery by the chairman of an agreement appointing Dr. Michelle Reed to serve as the Division Superintendent of Fairfax County Public Schools for the period beginning on July 1st, 2022 and ending on June 30th, 2026 on terms and conditions, more particularly set forth in the agreement. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Ms. Marin, Ms. Tolan, Ms. Dernak-Kofax, Ms. Eismore-Heiser, Ms. Pekarsky, Ms. Cohen, Mr. Frisch, Ms. Omesh, all those, and Ms. McLaughlin. All those opposed? Dr. Anderson, Ms. Keys-Gamarra, and Ms. Corbett-Sanders. That vote is that motion passes. And I'm very excited, Dr. Reed, to welcome you to the podium to share your opening remarks to our community.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for your confidence in me, and I'm grateful to have this opportunity, and I'm thrilled to serve this community and earn the trust of each of you on the board. I've listened carefully and will be thoughtful and reflective about everything I've heard, and you will have my best. So I want to thank you also for the opportunity to speak this evening and remind and reassure you and the community that I too will be looking out for the best interest of marginalized communities in our Fairfax County community. I want to begin by sharing a bit about myself, and I realize we've heard a lot about myself sitting here, but I was born in Germany and did arrive here in the United States at the age of 5. In fact, my port of entry was Andrews Air Force Base, as my father was assigned to the Walter Reed Medical Hospital. So I did grow up in a military family, moving quite a bit from Europe to Washington, D.C., Boston, Fort Ord, which is south of San Francisco, and then later set down deep roots in the Pacific Northwest. Throughout this military move and time, first and foremost, I understand the importance of service and appreciate that you're honoring that this evening as well. Coming from a family that understands service deeply. I also think that moving about regularly enables that sort of nimble flexibility that was a supportive trait throughout the pandemic and its accompanying challenges. So all things that appear as a challenge also can appear to be that which prompts us for future growth. My academic strengths, as you've noticed, fall in the STEM category, of course, with engineering, science, and math. Those are my passion, although there would be many who say technology might not be. As an educator and a mother, I am particularly supportive of STEM with the addition of the fine and performing arts. I believe that a well-rounded student and the fine and performing arts enable and support a culture and understanding in ways that very few other content areas can. I light up in classrooms. I believe my heart beats strongest when I'm in classrooms and with our students, and I can't wait tomorrow to be out in several of our schools. I also understand the foremost foundation of literacy and how necessary it is to access mathematics, science, and the arts, as well as our career and technical programs and apprenticeships and the opportunities that our students have moving forward, and how, again, I keep talking about the 65%, right, of our students who are preparing for a career that does not yet exist, and those skills that will be so necessary, so many of which I believe we learn in the arts. I'm deeply committed to learning in a variety of spaces. Not all learning occurs within a classroom confine. And we saw young people this evening who have demonstrated discipline in crafts and athletic moves, and those skills will carry them well into later life. Throughout my career, I've been a teacher, a principal, a coach, and I've been a sitting superintendent for 9 years. I am resolutely committed to a world-class education for each and every student in the division. High expectations require high support with steady and courageous leadership, and this continues to be my life's work. I do bring an equity lens to all aspects of teaching and learning. Recently, our Student Justice Cooperative Collective hosted a Student Justice Conference where Dr. Chris Emden spoke to them, and he talked about equity being truth in action. And I feel this evening, I appreciate each of you sharing your truth and prompting my response in the coming days to that truth. I want to share that it's fundamental to me in meeting with the leadership team, and I want to especially thank Dr. Brabrand and Dr. Francis Ivey, who spent quite a little bit of time with me today, and the team, the leadership team. I had the opportunity to share that a core value for me around the equity lens is that I believe if you walk by an inequity, you have lost the moral authority to lead. And I think that that's a critical piece that people must know about me, who I am as a person, and who I will be as your leader. During my 6-year tenure in the North Shore School District, I just want to give a couple data points. Our district did double the enrollment of income-eligible students in early childhood education to set our students on a positive trajectory once they started in kindergarten. We removed barriers so more students across the district could access accelerated math course taking patterns, because you're absolutely correct. It's an Office of Civil Rights tracked data point. We doubled numbers of our instrumental students in elementary music and provided access to our students to be able to participate in activities that they had not traditionally been able to participate in due to a variety of barriers. We dramatically increased dual credit course enrollment, AP, career and technical education, college and the high school courses, in all of our high schools, regardless of the neighborhood they sat in. I'm proud again to talk about our 2 elementary schools that we've opened that are state demonstration site for inclusive practices for students in special education. And we have a fabulous team that's working on research to expand those services and practices. We've increased the number of our school and central office administrators of color by more than 100% in the last 5 years. We have students at our new Innovation Lab high school who are taking advantage of cutting-edge assessment practices and opportunities to take their work outside a traditional classroom. We've increased dual language opportunities and substantially increased the number of our students, our multilingual students, earning biliteracy seals on diplomas. Finally, I believe learning happens best in community, and building trust happens when we develop and nurture relationships. That's critical. It's critical for our students that we're able to model those relationships. I also believe every effective leader should listen and learn from the community they lead and serve. I understand who I serve, and I would need to spend more time with our community to better understand the needs, the hopes, and dreams of each student, each family, each staff member that's a part of the Fairfax County Public Schools. Everyone has a story. Every student, every staff member, every family member, and community supporter. I'm committed to listening and learning from this community so that together we can build on the strengths of the Fairfax County Public Schools while developing schools of the future and not the schools of the past. I'm looking forward. I am absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity to work with each of you as board members and our community to prepare each and every student for a world yet to be imagined. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. If there is no objection, could we take a 5-minute recess, please? I'm so very sorry. 5 minutes. I promise. I'm counting.
Also, Dr. Reed, please stick around for Student Rep Matters. I promise there are more exciting things coming.
Yeah.
Take an item while we're off.
Okay. School board members, please take your seats. Yeah.
Jason said without objection.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do.
Without
Okay, good.
objection for both of them. The presentation one will be at a work session, and the other will find another time to go over in more detail. But it can still stay on new business.
Good.
And board matters.
No, 100%. 100, lady. School board members, I know we're all excited. I know we want to go home tonight. We have wonderful people waiting for our recognitions. Yes. Yeah. One, two. All right. Without objection, I would like to move agenda item 3.05 to after our recognitions and resolutions. And with that, we will move on to agenda item 3.06, Month of the Military Child Recognition. And I want to extend an apology to everyone who is with us tonight and still hanging in there. We appreciate you, and we are excited to celebrate you. I'll call on Ms. Corbett Sanders for recognition.
Absolutely, Madam Chair, and I am so excited to make this recognition tonight. And we are very honored this evening to have some very special guests. I'd like to acknowledge that our school liaison officer, Kristen Agua, attending on behalf of the Fort Belvoir Garrison Commander, Colonel Joshua Seagraves, and he unfortunately couldn't attend tonight, and members of the Military Connected Youth Process Action Team who are here with us this evening. April is the month of the military child. Here in Fairfax County, we are extremely fortunate to have over 13,500 students who are part of a military family, as well as part of our Fairfax County Public Schools family. Since 2018, when the Virginia Department of Education, the Virginia Council on the Interstate Compact on Educational Opportunity for Military Children, and Fairfax County Public Schools began certifying Purple Star schools, we have certified, ready for this, Dr. Reed? 31 elementary schools with this designation. Our military-connected students bring a strong sense of community and a wealth of life experiences to our schools. Our military families often move every 3 years. That means that in the course of a student's K through 12 education, they can move as many as 5 times. In addition to the physical moves, military-connected students often deal with their parents being deployed multiple times and worry about potential deployments when we see areas of unrest around the world. Celebrating the month of the military child provides a powerful opportunity to raise awareness and build support to help these children meet the unique challenges they face. It is an opportunity to recognize and thank military children for their heroism, character, courage, sacrifice, and continued resilience. We invite you to join us Wednesday, April 20th for Purple Up Day, as we encourage everyone to wear purple to celebrate our military-connected students. Before I invite our military families to join the board for a photo, I'd like to first show a very special video in honor of the month of the military child recognition.
Why I am proud of you is that you put everyone before you, right? Oh man, I'm getting emotional now. And that you think of others and then you go out and help people.
You do get to live in a lot of different places. Like I've lived in Hawaii before because we were stationed there. You kind of get different experiences, get to see new cultures and things like that.
being in the military has helped me grow because, like, I guess I have a lot of different perspectives on stuff. It's helped me see from different people's, like, points of view, and, you know, there's news coverage on Georgia one day, and I'm like, yo, I've lived there. I know what it's like.
So we will move on to the next recognition and take pictures after all of the recognitions. Before I do that, though, I do want to offer a special thanks to the daughter of a military family, the spouse of a military family, and somebody who made sure that we put a focus on having our Purple Star schools designated in Region 3. Dr. Nardis King, thank you for all you have done to do that. Oh, yes, and she is a mom, too.
Thank you, Ms. Corbett-Sanders. Agenda item 3.07, Hayfield Secondary School basketball team recognition has been postponed. Agenda item 3.08, Lake Braddock Secondary School varsity gymnastics team recognition has been postponed. Agenda item 3.09, Social Worker of the Year recognition has now been postponed. However, agenda item 3.10, After School Professionals Week recognition. I call on Ms. Tolman for this recognition.
Fairfax County Public Schools after-school professionals create a rich environment for our students where creativity, enrichment, and inspiration thrive. They provide a place that challenges students to work outside of their comfort zone without fear of failure, a safe and secure place to engage and inspire them to learn, promote physical and emotional health, and expose them to new experiences. After-school professionals afford our children access to high-quality relationships with their peers and caring adults, and to expanded learning opportunities beyond what they have access to at home and at school. After-school programs present the opportunity to enrich, remediate, and explore that helps young people develop the attitudes, skills, and knowledge to thrive in the workplace and communities of the 21st century. FCPS is proud of our after-school professionals and grateful for all their hard work and sincere dedication. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 3.11, resolution honoring Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce and the Citizen Bond Committee. I'll call on Ms. Marin for this resolution.
I see some of our representatives are still here. Thank you. Whereas the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce and the 2021 Citizen Bond Committee play a crucial role in supporting our schools and contribute to high-quality education and life in Fairfax County. And whereas collaboration among local public schools, community organizations, and businesses provides a well-trained and highly educated workforce. And whereas first-in-class instructional facilities are required to provide spaces for students to practice and hone the skills needed for success in the workforce and their communities. And whereas an excellent public school system must have school facilities that are increasingly more environmentally sustainable to preserve finite natural and financial resources. And whereas public school facilities serve not only the students and adults who learn and work there, but also provide essential space for community athletics, indoors and outdoors, community meetings, and distribution of public health services, including emergency shelter and more. And whereas members of the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce, led by President and CEO Julie Coons, with support from Vice President for Governmental Relations Clayton Medford, and the entire 2021 Citizen Bond Committee, led by Chairman Len Forkas, have dedicated their time, energy, and resources in support of passage of the 2021 $360 million school bond referendum, with 70% of the county's voters voting yes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Fairfax County School Board extends its highest commendation and deepest appreciation to the Chamber and Committee for their leadership and outstanding service to Fairfax County Public Schools and Fairfax County through their unwavering dedication to the the children and overall success of this community. Your work has resulted in securing sound public investments to provide the best public schools possible for every FCPS student.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Tolan. Ms. Marin, would you like to speak?
No further. I'm very deeply appreciative. Thank you. Well, and to say that Chairman Lynn Forkas was here earlier, but he had to leave for a plane flight, but very deepest gratitude to him as well.
Ms. Tolan?
Just a quick thank you for all of the work that the committee has done, the citizens that served on the committee, and the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce, and all of their support. Thank you.
Mr. Frisch, your light is on. Dr. Anderson, your light is on.
Yes. I did want to very quickly say thank you for this recognition and for all of those who have been called. And I also want to point out we have our Mason District citizen member who participated and helped get this bond passed. She's in the audience, Julie Stranley. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all of your work, because I know parents did not stop hearing about this from you, particularly at Annandale High School. So thank you again for ensuring that we were able to, in Mason District, really benefit from these bonds, because they will be going towards one of our schools, Bryn Mawr Park. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Ms. Corbett-Sanders?
Yes, I want to thank the members of the bond committee, but I also want to thank the taxpayers of Fairfax County for having the confidence in our school system to ensure that every child gets a great building to attend their school in. And we are working very hard and diligently to get rid of all of those trailers, and the only way we can do that is with the great support of the taxpayers of Fairfax County and the incredible dedication and work of the members of the bond committee. So thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I will go ahead and take the vote. Oh, Ms. Marin, would you like to speak again? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous with everyone at the table.
And I would now like to invite Clayton Medford, I see Tim Thompson, Ms. Julie Stranley, and as well as Jay Garrett to please join me and the board for the dais for a photo. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite School Liaison Officer Kristen Akaw and any military families or anyone here in the audience in support of our military families to please join the board at the dais for a photo. If you're here this evening in support of the after-school professionals, we ask you to please join the board at the dais for a photo.
Okay. Agenda item 4.01, community participation. The next order of business is community participation. Shh. Hi, everyone. Speakers must limit their remarks to no more than 2 minutes in length. At the conclusion of the 2 minutes, the microphone or video will be turned off. School board members will be listening but not responding to individual speakers. The school board will not hear statements involving issues that have been scheduled for public hearings, such as the capital improvement program, budget, and boundaries. Comments targeting, criticizing, or attacking individual students are not permitted during public meetings. Complaints regarding school-based employees should be directed to the appropriate school principal or other school official. Speakers should refrain from using personally identifiable information in connection with an individual student or school-based employee. Additionally, speakers should be respectful and observe proper decorum in their statements, avoiding profanity, inappropriate gestures, shouting, and comments that run counter to the spirit and letter of the school division's non-discrimination policy. All statements should be directed to the school board, and speakers should remain at the podium until concluding their remarks. As a reminder, speaker substitutions are not permitted. A speaker may not yield their time to another individual before or during their remarks. Shouting and outbursts from the audience will not be tolerated, but we are very grateful for those of you who have come to speak to us today, and very much thank you for your cooperation and your patience. Ms. Madeja?
Our first speaker is Maureen Syed.
Ms. Madeja, if I could just interrupt, it did come to my attention, and it's late, that there is a Boy Scout in our midst working on his Citizenship in the Community Award. So I don't know if you could see Ms. Madeja, do we have a slot for our student tonight or to be able to speak? Thank you. Thank you. Jesse Raymer, welcome.
Yeah, he's on the list. He's our next speaker. So our next speaker
is
Jesse Raymer.
Look how great I am, see?
Good evening, Dr. Brabrand and FCPS school board officials. My name is Jesse Raymer. I am a 6th grader at Little Run Elementary School. I am here to talk about the Outstanding School-Based Operational Employee of the Year Award and why my school's custodian, Mr. Frank, should be chosen. Mr. Frank makes school fun every day for everyone, like when he does a special handshake and snaps our fingers together. He has a smile on his face every day and a joke to share. Mr. Frank makes everyone feel welcome at Little Run, especially the kindergartners. Everyone knows his name and looks forward to talking with him. Mr. Frank goes above and beyond his job for everyone, just like when he brought candy and drinks to our classroom at the end of 3rd grade. He helps us out during difficult times, like when my friend Sully was crying in the hallway because she got a bad score on her test. Mr. Frank went out of his way to comfort her, then led her back to the classroom. Once my younger friend Jack's bicycle broke down in front of the school after school hours. Mr. Frank was able to temporarily fix Jack's bike so he could ride home. My principal says that hiring Mr. Frank as the daytime custodian was one of the best hiring decisions she ever made. He is committed to the school, the students, and the community as a whole. This is why Mr. Frank should get this award. He is a fun, caring, and kind person. Thank you for considering Mr. Frank Safaro for the FCPS Operational Employee of the Year Award.
Thank you, Jesse. We appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Jay Vizcardo Lichter. Our next speaker is Safa Chauhan. Our next speaker is Monica Sarmiento.
Good evening, members of the school board. My name is Monica Sarmiento. I'm the executive director of the Virginia Coalition for Immigrant Rights, a collaborative of 45 organizations in the Commonwealth that collectively convene for the immigrant rights movement in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm here to speak in support of the Fairfax Trust policy as it is written. I think all of you know that Fairfax is the heart of the immigrant community in the Commonwealth, which has the 9th largest undocumented community in the country. And so we have so many families that depend on you for their safety, want to feel safe at school when we have seen our undocumented families attacked at a national level, and those scars have still pertained. So we really want to go ahead and make sure that those families wholly feel safe in our public schools. We saw two organizations really speak out, which is CASA as well as Fairfax ACLU People Power, both who are members of VASIR. And so we really want to go ahead and make sure that as we see the landscape of Virginia change, we know that Fairfax continues to be a welcoming environment where students feel safe, where families feel safe, where parents feel safe, and can entrust their data, their information will not be shared with ICE for any scrupulous reasons to separate and really destroy families at the core. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Elizabeth Zielinski.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Zielinski. I'm a disability advocate and the parent of an autistic teenager. I'm here tonight to discuss our understanding of autism. First of all, thank you to FCPS ABA program for the progressive website resources they provided for Autism Acceptance Month in April. Note that it's autism acceptance and not awareness. Awareness says, we know you exist. Acceptance is better, but it's the minimum anyone deserves. We need to appreciate, because diversity in all of its forms benefits everyone. There is no them, only us. Words have power, and they can change mindsets. But words aren't enough without action, and it's time for FCPS to modernize how they serve their thousands of autistic students. The unique needs of this community must be examined regarding IQ testing, communication support, and the role of motor planning, just to name a few things. ABA is no longer the only option, as evidenced by a growing body of research as well as feedback from autistic self-advocates. For FCPS to lead in educational best practices, it has to be informed by evolving research and the expertise of autistic people, not simply rely on established methods which have been mostly unchanged for decades. One simple change you can make today. Autistic self-advocates reject puzzle piece symbolism because it has a complicated and ableist history. Symbols of neurodiversity are better, but they are not specific to autism. This gold infinity symbol that I'm wearing tonight is one that was chosen by autistics because the chemical symbol for gold is AU, and it represents the infinite diversity of autism. In the words of Maya Angelou, do the best you can until you know better, and when you know better, do better. Let's challenge ourselves to model the education we value by being willing to learn more and teach better. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sandra Davis.
Parents are not a trendy topic that will eventually fade away, and we are not a certain kind of person. Continue to dismiss us all as right-wing operatives at your own political risk. I am Sandra Davis, a parent, a moderate Democrat, or so I thought until my own party, you all included, stepped so far to the left you fell off a cliff and you're trying to drag our children with you. I was a proud participant in the attempt to recall several of you. We knew it was a heavy lift, yet we achieved success by drawing attention to the fact that children do not come first here and common sense was abandoned long ago. Recall is street level. I met a lot of people in the county, and parents, they had questions. They wanted to know why were recent immigrants from communist countries terrified of what was happening here? Why were teachers saying they were going to quit, retire, not because of pay, but because of what they were being asked to teach? Why were the children whose parents didn't speak English dragging them over to explain what we were doing and eagerly getting them to sign? Why were parents telling us that they found out via SIS that their child's records had been changed and they were heartbroken to be the last to know? Why was every single story about a child with an IEP so sad and tragic we kept tissues on hand? Why were military parents concerned their kids would be behind at the next duty station? You spend the first hour, 2 hours, every one of these meetings gaslighting, bloviating, self-congratulating, engaging in group therapy, campaigning even, while we sit and wonder when you're going to get to the stuff we heard on the street. You've really messed up this time. Elections are in 2023, and I know you're not afraid of the red wave, but the wave this time is purple. It's the parents and the people that I met on the street.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Catherine Stewart.
Good evening, members of the school board, Dr. Brabrand, who isn't in here anymore, and FCPS senior staff. My name is Catherine Stewart, and I'm a mother of 3 FCPS students. Most of you know me, or at least may recognize this shirt that I'm wearing. I am here tonight to say thank you. We are so excited about the middle school recess policy that you all will pass later tonight. 5 years ago, a small group of parents met and worked with many of you to increase elementary school recess to a minimum of 30 minutes per day. Then, in the fall of 2018, Adriana Nino spoke at a SHAC meeting to point out that middle school students still had no recess at all. Former school board member Sandy Evans submitted a forum topic on middle school recess in response. The issue was discussed and some progress was made, but we still didn't have recess for all middle school students. When Sandy retired and Dr. Anderson was elected to take her place, we met with Dr. Anderson to ask her to take up the cause of middle school recess. That was at the beginning of 2020, right before COVID hit. Thank you, Dr. Anderson, for continuing to champion the cause of middle school recess over the past 2 years. When I was watching the work session on Tuesday, I was so encouraged by the comments each of you made on the importance of recess. This represents a real culture shift, especially when you started bringing up investing in new facilities and equipment for middle school recess. It's so wonderful to see the efforts of our prayers and hard work. I also want to thank the School Health Advisory Committee and all the middle school principals who have been trying to out different ideas and getting creative about how to give our kids breaks and outdoor time in middle school. I'm so excited that my daughter will enter middle school next year with 15 minutes of recess. We recess advocates look forward to continuing to work with the board. Thank you all so much for this and for all you do for our students. I know your jobs are not easy, and I will keep praying for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mark Smith. Our next speaker is Missy Pratt.
Communist Marxist ideologies. This is what was intentionally planted in academia during John Dewey's day, whom I'm sure all of you know and love. For almost 100 years, these destructive ideas have been eating away like a virus from within the American education system. And today, Fairfax County leads the way in propagandizing our children with these communist Marxist ideologies. This statement is not conjecture. This is truth. If you don't know what I'm referring to you, let me be clear. I'm talking about the sexual and gender liberation ideologies that now permeate FCPS curriculum and campus life, critical race theory, of which you feed your educators, thereby indoctrinating our children, the diversity, inclusion, and equity tenets that seem so noble but actually serve to divide, exclude, and disenfranchise every single student in our school system. School board members, if you do not know what I'm talking about, then you have no business sitting in the seat that you're in, and you should resign immediately. And school board members, if you do know what I'm talking about, that communist principles are embedded in our education system, specifically the FCPS education system, the same holds true. You should resign immediately. These are not popular things to say. People lose their jobs for speaking truth like I am doing tonight. German and Russian philosophers Marx, Kropotkin, Lenin, Stalin founded or perpetrated these ideologies that were responsible for over 100,000 deaths. In his book, New Lies for Old, KGB leader and Russian defector Anatoly Golitsyn exposed the subtleties of communism and the plan for communism to manifest in America through our education system. While none of you authored these ideologies, you are complicit in the destruction that they bring into this county and our school system. If you do disagree with these ideologies, then make it known. Otherwise, not one of you deserves to be on this school board. And parents are disgusted by it, and we are coming for your seats.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Emily Hackle.
Forgive me, I'm shaking from the last speaker's comments.
Go ahead.
convey to you tonight the struggles of many twice exceptional students in Fairfax County, but I cannot do so in 2 minutes. I wish the stories of frustrated parents and the issues they raise did not repeat. I wish I could not say that I did not pull one of my kids from Fairfax County after reading hundreds of comments about similar kids slipping through the cracks. We have been telling our stories for years to no avail, and we are so tired. You may not hear from us often enough because we don't have the energy. We are busy making sure our children go to school the next day, making sure our kids stay out of the hospital because of their trauma. Trauma caused because FCPS has failed to create an appropriate setting to educate them. IEP meeting number, I have lost count because there are just so many, each one a stalemate. Our kids are bright. Many are often profoundly gifted, yet they are either routinely screened out of advanced programs or set up for failure when they don't get the support they need. Too often, schools can't accept that they learn differently. They are accused of eloping when they need a break, called lazy, unmotivated, cowardly, difficult, or poorly behaved. We are told they are so unusual, such outliers, that the system simply cannot accommodate them, and we should just settle for less. The Supreme Court ruled that the bar was to be set at the potential of the child, not the bare minimum. Where is the urgency? Where is the long-promised neurodiversity specialist? Within hours of any of the latest controversies, like our former speaker, you react, but the slow and steady denial of FAPE, nothing. Our kids are secluded, bullied, outcasts. The FCPS motto seems like a cruel joke to us. FCPS does not engage them, it does not engage them, and our kids are deaf.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Deborah Tisler.
Actions speak louder than words, which is something this school board has forgotten. Tonight, for example, is a bright, blinking example of your disconnect with the community you are to serve. For years, FCPS has failed to ensure that every child is receiving appropriate, evidence-based, and/or peer-reviewed, research-based instruction as mandated by state and federal regulations. If FCPS fully invested in meeting those mandates in the same way it invests in lawyers and cleaning up messes related to being hacked, sexual abuse, failing to launch a viable online platform, and to denials of free and appropriate public education, FCPS would be on its way to breaking the barriers of illiteracy and poverty, and might even find itself closing the achievement gap. Instead, millions of dollars that should be invested in our children go into the wallets of in-house and outsourced lawyers that are hired for damage control and to protect the personal interests of both this board and upper administration. We, the people of Fairfax, see through the facade of this school board and your agents, just as Judge Gardner did in the decision he rendered when this school board sued me and my friend Callie, when this school board tried to bully us from sharing your legal invoices and suppress our First Amendment rights. Judge Gardner expressed that you failed. Your lawsuit was near frivolous and your actions appeared to be inept. This school board wasted over $300,000 to fulfill the role of a schoolyard bully. If this school board was truly vested in the children and being the Statue of Liberty of education, you'd shift the funding from legal services from the overcompensated and underperforming upper management and from pet projects, and instead allocate the funding for the following.
Thank you.
Ms. Madeja, please
Yes,
go ahead
our
and
next
call the
speaker
next school
is
board
Diane
member.
Alejandro.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you offering your comments tonight. Your time has run out. Who is our next?
Our next speaker is Diane Alejandro.
Please walk to the podium, Ms. Alejandro.
Good evening. I am Diane Alejandro, the lead advocate for ACLU People Power Fairfax. I am here to thank you for developing a robust trust policy. We urge each of you to vote for it when it comes before you again on April 28th. This school board has acted before to protect the rights of immigrant students, for example, with the SRO program. The trust policy, however, is broader and more profound. My husband and I moved to Fairfax for the schools. So have many immigrant families. But their children cannot thrive if they fear their parents will be deported because of information they share to enroll or to complete assignments. Now, we know you have a broad anti-discrimination provision, so one has to ask, why do you need a school policy? One, because your aspirations and desires are not enough. We still get reports of discrimination. We still get reports of harassment. We still get reports of abuse. Parents are afraid to come forward. Some of them are undocumented. Some of them have family members that are undocumented. Fear drives them away from schools. Second, privacy is a tricky subject. You have FERPA provisions that are designed to protect and yet do not protect the rights of immigrant students who have their information shared that normally you would consider to be routine. This policy will benefit all in Fairfax.
Thank you. Our next speaker is David Walrod.
Chair Pekarsky and members of the school board, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is David Walrod, and I am the president-elect of the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers. During your last meeting, you recognized National Library Week. While I'd hoped to give that address that day, the lottery was not in my favor. Librarians have an important job. They teach research skills. They give students the tools that they need to thrive in a 21st century media environment. Most importantly, they inspire. Like many students today, books were vital to my childhood. Books gave me access to perspectives and viewpoints I may not have otherwise had access to. Books were comforts during times of grief. They were a form of relaxation during times of stress. They were an escape during times of turmoil. Books introduced me to characters that I could see myself being. They introduced me to characters whose lives I never could have lived. I'm eternally grateful to the librarians in my childhood and hope that you will continue to honor and support these valuable professionals and the work that they do for our students. Finally, I wish to thank you for the diligence that you did during your superintendent search. It is imperative that our next superintendent come in on day one, ready to lead one of the best and biggest school districts in the United States. I look forward to the continued growth and improvement that will occur in Fairfax over the coming years. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Amber Beichler. Our next speaker is Jess Tisfay.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to continue what I earlier talked to you about the science fair project that my daughter and some other students who look like her were completely hidden to have this information, and while they were in school, it was run behind them. While I'm sitting here, I have heard you talking about equity, inclusion, STEM, the importance of it, and I'm really wondering, What do they feel about? What do each one of them have in mind when I talk to you, bring you this issue the whole week this week, almost the whole month? And I wonder what you are actually going to be doing about it. While I was continuing to look for an answer how the students did not get to hear about this big project, the response I got finally from the principal was it was by inquiry. And my next question was, how would my daughter and other students would inquire when they don't even know that this existed? I asked multiple times, and the information was how the information was posted, announced on the walls, or what it was. I did not get the answer. Not only that science fair, my daughter and some of the students have not done a single science project in their entire schooling, while they were even bused to the AAP Center from 3rd to 8th grade and now taking honor science classes for 2 years. How is this possible? How could this happen? Except a systemic design approach with a long-term goal to keep our students who had passion for science to explore these related fields in their future. So I urge the school board to seriously take this matter seriously and give us the answer and take the proper action. This school system has a lot of work to do when it comes to creating a true caring culture.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Margarita Brown.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our next speaker is Cole Mallard.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you sharing.
Our next speaker
tonight.
is Michelle Cadies.
Good evening. I'm the president of Fairfax County Special Education PTA. Listening to Ms. Keys-Gamarra and Dr. Anderson tonight, I threw out my prepared statement and wrote this one. These women speak from their hearts about their perspective on community members not feeling heard, and they could have been describing our students with disabilities, their parents, and their teachers. We too do not feel heard. We bare our souls in IEP meetings. We're up against a system that's supposed to collaborate with us, but we're outnumbered, and the balance of power always favors the schools. We have limited understanding of the regulations, our legal rights, and systemic resources. We cannot protect our children from being restrained or secluded in school, and we lack financial resources to hire attorneys or pay $40,000 to $50,000 a year to send our children to private schools for students with disabilities. So many overworked special educators on the ground want to help us the way we need to be helped, but they risk retribution from their supervisors if they do so. General education teachers are not trained special educators, yet they're being forced to take on this role because FCPS does not have enough special ed teachers to adequately support our model of inclusion in a manner that truly works well. It's time to treat all parents and students as equal members of IEP teams, to actually teach all students how to read and write using current, scientifically evidence-based approaches. We need dyslexia specialists in every school, not just one for the entire system. We need in-class support for 2E students. We need to teach students on the VAP track literacy and math skills and how to live to their full potential in society. We need to be brave and call out injustice when we see it. Said Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you very much for making time for me.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Suparna Dutta.
Good evening. Karen Keys-Gamarra, I think you're right. A lot of parents have been marginalized and silenced, and I'm one of them, and there are quite a few in this audience. On February 25th, Federal District Judge Hilton ruled that the Fairfax School Board discriminated against Asian American students by manipulating the admissions policy to racially balance Teacher High School, so giving preferential bonus points to some students at the expense of others. Yet the school board continues to use our hard-earned money, taxpayer money, to fight us. Today you voted for Michelle Reed. After Braban, one would think, could things really get any worse for Fairfax County students? I mean, we have a 12-0 ideologically far-left school board and a far-left superintendent. So what are Michelle Reed's successes? Coming from the North Shore School District, she oversaw a steep decline in their math and reading scores in the last couple of years. She was the first to close schools when COVID hit and the last to reopen them. FCPS student scores have been in a steady decline. FCPS enrollment is down, just like in North Shore School District. Reed will fit in perfectly with the FCPS gang to continue the tragic downward trajectory here. They say some on this board leaked the names of the superintendent candidates. Well, I think parents should have a seat at the table to pick the superintendent. It's our taxpayer money. Is a rigorous quality of education Reed's priority? What does she think of political indoctrination in classrooms? From what will she continue to pander the woke leftist activists destroying Fairfax schools? From what we heard tonight, she may be just viewing everything as an exercise in equity. Also, what can parents do? Parents can take their kids out of Fairfax public schools. Parents can stand for the school board elections to take you radicals out. And as Laura Jane Cohen said,
Thank you. Thank you. We also have 2 video testimonies this evening. The first one is from Natasha Sangvi.
Hello, my name is Natasha and I'm a student organizer with the Pride Liberation Project. My peers and I were not given the opportunity to ask questions to candidates during the FCPS superintendent search. If we were, here's what we would ask.
What role did parents have in the classroom in previous school districts you've managed, and how do you plan to support parents that want to have a voice when it comes to what is taught in the classroom?
How will you ensure that all students' voices are heard and not overshadowed by others who don't have our best interests at heart? Will you follow the students' requests?
How would you take student input into consideration on changes that directly affect us?
What is your experience level when it comes to working with Title I schools?
And I would like to know what your policy is on ensuring the continuing success of English language learner students throughout the next few years in our county.
How would you help protect the safety of students and staff in the event of another COVID-19 surge?
How do you plan on addressing declining student performance and a lack of motivation from students and faculty that is emerging as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic?
What do you think of the ongoing movement to ban books from school public libraries, and what criteria do you consider when deciding what kind of books should be banned?
What is your plan for implementing Glenn Youngkin's Excellence in Education Restoration Initiative, and how will this affect the work teachers are already doing to keep families informed?
How are you going to ensure that information is communicated effectively in our county?
How would you make sure FCPS addresses the climate crisis and ensures sustainability in schools?
How will you ensure that all student voices are heard in such a large county?
How will you protect trans students if the requirement that school districts must follow the model transgender policies is repealed?
Just how they're going to handle that assault on LGBTQ+ students.
How does the superintendent plan on addressing the safety and inclusivity of transgender students in school and school-sanctioned activities?
What will you do to close disparities for achievement between low-income and underprivileged students of color?
And our final video is from Karen Taylor.
Good evening. My name is Karen Taylor, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers and bring you an update on the All-In grant. COVID presented enormous challenges to staff and students as they return to in-person learning. Maintaining safe physical distancing, particularly in situations with large class sizes, provided a silver lining to schools to reconsider their outdoor spaces in new and creative ways to the benefit of students' educational, social, and emotional well-being. In 2021, FCFT applied for and received funding from the American Federation of Teachers All-In grant to assist schools in providing flexible learning spaces and resources for outdoor use. To date, 5 schools, Herndon, Wayanoke, Timber Lane, and Crestwood Elementary Schools, and Westfield High School, have received funding based on need and the ability to develop and implement plans for creating these spaces. Lead individuals at each school were tasked with coordinating their proposed projects with their respective administrators, fellow staff members, students, school communities, and FCFT. Site visits were conducted in fall 2021 to evaluate prospective sites on school property that would lend themselves to further development to serve all students, taking into account accessibility and approval by FCPS facilities. Detailed plans, budgets, and timelines were created to enhance outdoor classrooms and learning experiences. Proposed projects seek to increase students' time outdoors by including outdoor workspace and seating for entire classes, and garden areas to support exploration, discovery, curriculum tie-ins, food production, and the expansion of native habitats. These projects are now well underway, with requested items currently being purchased and delivered to the schools. Work days for completion of the projects and dedications are being planned with student, staff, and PTA input. We are looking forward to completion of these projects in spring 2022, when students and staff will have permanent access to these well-designed, inviting, and exciting learning areas.
Excellent. Agenda item 4.02, Superintendent Matters. I'll call on Dr. Brabrand.
Thank you, Chairman Pekarsky. I'll try to be super brief this evening. And I know that you may be in some conversations that we've had looking at some presentations to postpone to the work session that we have, and so that we can give you and the public the full information in the right time. So I look forward to that. I also look forward to a future agenda item around actions you all had in closed, and I'll make, perhaps with your discretion, a couple of comments at the end of actions taken after that. First, I want to say, just right out of the gate, welcome Dr. Reed as the next superintendent of Fairfax County Public Schools. I'm very excited to get to know you, to work with you to ensure a full and seamless transition. And we have not had that in Fairfax County between two sitting superintendents and a new incoming superintendent in over 40 years. So I'm very excited about that. I pledge the full resources of the leadership team and this organization to ensure you get off to a successful start. And it is a pleasure to get to know you today and to get to know you in the months ahead. So thank you and congratulations. I also want to share a couple of things just going on that all of you will be interested in. First of all county chorus this past Tuesday, the Fairfax County Public Schools and the Fairfax General Music Educators Association had the 6th annual All-County Choral Festival concert with selected 6th graders. I did have a virtual intro there. It is great, Dr. Reed. You'll get to see when it is in person, which it will be moving forward, thousands of kids, 6th graders singing, and it's better than any Broadway show you could experience. Super excited about that. Super excited about some of our summer learning opportunities. We're going to continue to have a summer school 2 to 3 times larger than normal as we work to deal with unfinished learning in our kids. Go to our website, put in summer learning, learn more about all of our summer programs with partners like SAC, Fairfax County Libraries, and the Fairfax County Park Authority. We have a school bus driver job fair Monday, April 25th. We love our school bus drivers, and we want more folks to come and drive a school bus for FCPS. $3,000 signing bonus, competitive pay, which this school board took leadership in raising at the very beginning of this year. No pre-registration. It'll be at 8101 Lorden Road Station at our Lorden Transportation Center. Also, I wanted to share with you the FCPS Parent Orchestra. Dr. Reed, I know you're doing a lot with parent involvement. I can't wait to hear about many of the ideas. But one thing we're doing, I don't know if you knew, we have an FCPS. I didn't know this either, so I'll just be honest. I know you guys are looking at me. I didn't know it until I did Superintendent Matters today, that Annandale High School's orchestra teacher, Annie Ray, has started a parent orchestra group. There's now a wait list to be on the parent orchestra. And it's really an exciting time to really accentuate our caring culture, our connection with families, and really create a love of music that we already have so strong in FCPS, not just across our kids, but the parents and families who represent them. So congratulations to Miss Ray. What a great example of caring culture. Also, resource stewardship. Again, many of these, that's our caring culture. One of our other strategic plan goals, resource stewardship. Earth Week is April 18th to the 22nd with our Get to Green resources. And our students will be celebrating that, and really a great way to have a chance to engage and continue to engage our students in conversation around environmental topics, environmental sustainability, and our Portrait of a Graduate goals around being ethical and global citizens. I also just want to end on one other note. that a mentor of many of the leadership team and a personal mentor to me, Dr. Lillian Lowry, passed away suddenly yesterday. Dr. Lowry was a teacher in Fairfax County, a principal. She was a region assistant superintendent. She gave me the opportunity to become principal at Fairfax High. She went on to lead one of the largest district in Delaware, became state superintendent for Delaware and Maryland, and then went on to be a senior vice president at ETS. And Lillian was an inspiration, a moral force, and one of the finest people I have ever met, and just an inspiration. So please keep her family in your thoughts and prayers, and God bless you, Lillian. Thank you for all you did for me and all of this leadership team in Fairfax County. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brabrand. Agenda item 4.03, student representative matters.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. In true Pranav fashion, I prepared a lot. I promise I'm going to save you most of it. But there is one thing that I really thought was important, and that was, Dr. Reed, I greatly look forward to getting to know you and working with you on everything ranging from suicide risk screenings to the experiences of children going through the IEP process, fidelity of implementation at the hyperlocal level for policies set by central office when we have almost 200 schools, the ways in which we do not currently meet the needs of twice exceptional students, the de facto segregation reinforced by the way that we structure gifted education and tracking in Fairfax, the quality and frequency of student voice opportunities. I put this in all caps underlined, by the way. Student voice is something that I think is really critical to this community. How heavily and universally disparities at home can fuel disparities in the classroom, how we can advocate for students who are dealing with child abuse or an abusive environment at home and support them in the classroom, and so much more. I also do look forward to conversations about our revenue structure here in the Commonwealth and how some of the most legendary superintendents in our county's history have not shied away from asking for the funding that we truly need to meet our student needs when working with our state and local partners, even when it wasn't popular among politicians outside of this body. My path through this school system has been circuitous, but Fairfax County Public Schools has become one of my life's passions, and I really do hope that all of us at this dais can show you why we all love this unique, beautiful school district so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury. If there is no objection by my colleagues, we are going to postpone agenda item 4.04. 4.04, elementary school language arts basals, and agenda item 4.05, students' rights and responsibilities. We are having an upcoming work session for the SRNR, and we will schedule a time to also hear about our language arts basals, both very important topics, but seeing as it is this late hour and our staff need to go home, thank you. And with that, I would like to go back to agenda item 5. Oh, okay. Agenda item 5. No. Just agenda item 5.02, appointment of the Assistant Superintendent, Department of Human Resources. I'll call on Dr. Anderson.
I move that the school board appoint Dr. Sherry Wilson as Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources effective June 1, 2022, and authorize the chairman to execute a contract reflecting this action.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Marin. Dr. Anderson?
Yes, very excited to bring forward this recommendation by staff. It's been a long 2 years in our search for an assistant superintendent for HR. But before I speak a little bit about Dr. Wilson, I want to say thank you to Mr. McDonald for all of his work in the interim in this position. He has stepped into a very difficult role at a very trying time and has just been a hero, as you can see by the applause that he's just received. So thank you so very much for that work. I know you're looking forward to your next chapter, which is kind of going back a page. And so we're excited that Dr. Wilson's presence will allow you to do that. Dr. Wilson comes to us from Chesapeake, and we are very excited that she's here. Unfortunately, she's not here physically with us this evening. And Dr. Brabrand, maybe you want to share when she would be with us in person?
We'll have her coming to our next board meeting to make some remarks before the board, and thank you.
Dr. Wilson is an experienced HR director with over 11 years of experience, and so we're really looking forward to her coming into our division and helping to lead that department. Very excited. Thank you.
Ms. Marin?
Yeah, I'll add, I'm very eager for Dr. Wilson to start, and I thank her for choosing to come to Fairfax County Public Schools for this super important position, and we are eager to see her in person. And I also want to echo thanks to Mr. Sean McDonald, who I've had the pleasure of knowing since before I was elected as an appointee on the Human Resources Advisory Committee, and I just am so grateful for everything you have done through this pandemic. And I don't know how you're going to ever go back. You can't unknow what you know. But we're glad you're still going to be here, and I look forward to working with you in your new old capacity, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we take the vote, I too will say thank you. You are an incredible asset to this system. I'm so glad that you will continue to be with us. And with that, call for the vote. The motion to appoint Dr. Sherry Wilson as the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources effective June 1st, 2022, and authorize the chairman to execute a contract reflecting this action. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? That motion passes with Ms. Omesh away from the table. Agenda item 5.03, School Board Policy 2100. Student and staff health and wellness. I'll call on Ms. Cohen for the motion.
We're doing such a good job sharing. I move that the board approve policy 2100, student and staff health and wellness. My mouth doesn't work anymore.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Anderson. Ms. Cohen?
I couldn't say it better than Catherine did. I will say, as a parent of elementary schoolers at the time that you all really started the recess push, and that was the first way I knew about and learned about all of the activism that and advocacy that Ms. Pekarsky was doing for our kids in this county. I mean, this is a no-brainer. We all know that our kids need breaks, and we're really excited to get to codify it, and grateful to our middle school principals who are embracing this fully, and we can't wait to help support them do it. So thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Anderson?
Yes, very briefly. I do want to say thank you for recounting the history and just kind of how I got involved into this. I did pick up the baton from Ms. Evans, so I want to be sure that she has credit for having begun this work. I won't belabor the point because I think last time I talked about this quite a bit. I'm very excited that this is happening for our students, particularly when we have our sixth graders in Mason that are at the middle school, which is a very different experience than those who are around the division. So I'm looking forward to this being moved forward so that our students can have this in place for them at every single school every day next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. I call on Ms. Derenak Kofax for an amendment.
I move to amend the main motion by revising the language in Section 4 policy under B, physical activity, elementary and middle schools. The language reads, will create a schedule that allows for students to participate in daily outdoor recess, weather permitting. And instead to read 5A, elementary schools will create a schedule that allows for students to participate in daily outdoor recess, weather permitting. 5B, middle schools will create a schedule that allows for students to choose to participate in daily outdoor recess, weather permitting, or provided supervised indoor activity.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Corbett Sanders. Ms. Derenak Kofax, would you like to speak?
Yes, as we all stated in our work session, we were excited to bring forward in policy middle school recess. However, as I had asked for some time during the last time this was brought to us, I have heard concerns, as of my colleagues, about the need to be respectful of middle school student choice. And while some middle school students welcome the opportunity to refresh themselves outdoors, others may need more quiet time and would prefer to remain inside our buildings playing board or card games with friends or reading. I have worked with the middle school principals in my region, one which includes the chair of the Middle School Principals Association, and he looked at his executive board. He is in favor, he and his board are in favor of these. So it's for these reasons that Ms. Corbett Sanders and I have brought forward this amendment. And we have also collaborated with our colleague, Dr. Anderson, to bring forward the changes we have today. We look forward to your support.
Ms. Corbett Sanders?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. As you know, this policy came to the table for a vote at our last meeting. I supported leaving the policy on the agenda as new business last meeting and for action tonight to allow me to speak with the middle school principals in my district, many of which I share with Ms. Derenak Kofax. In our speaking with the middle school principals, a couple of items were raised to my attention. The first was that a break for individual students differs among students in the same way. A break for the individual students and what they consider a break differs among students in the same way as they do for adults. The middle schoolers have done a great job the middle schools have done a great job of piloting recess over the past year and have learned from that process. Some students prefer to take their break inside, where they can quietly read a book, play a game, or work on puzzles, while others need and prefer to be outside. What this amendment does is make sure that we are able to honor and respect the differing needs of our students while ensuring that there is supervision for those students. Having this in policy is a transparent way of establishing the priority of the board to ensure that our students have breaks and are encouraged but not required to be outside. The Middle School Principals Association unanimously supported the amendment, and I would appreciate your support as well.
Thank you. Seeing as there are no other speakers, I'll take the amendment to the motion is before us on the screen. All those in favor? That vote is unanimous. We will now go back to the main motion.
No. There's a second.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I call Ms. Corbett Sanders for an amendment.
Okay, hold on one second. I move to amend the main motion by adding for students or students in Section 4 policy under B, physical activity, to read, if there is a safety or security concern that impact the availability of recess for a student or students, the principal or their administrative designee will review the circumstances and take appropriate action in each case in accordance with the FCPS policies and regulations.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ms.
Sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Derenak Kofax. Ms. Corbett Sanders?
Yes, thank you. Before I actually speak to this amendment, I do want to thank the Governance Committee for the incredible amount of work on this policy, because it really they did an amazing job, and this amendment, as was the other one, is really just minor clarifications that make it easier for our middle school principals to follow the guidance. So I would appreciate the support of this, because what it does do is allow for the principals to be very focused on how they can best manage their building and meet the needs of their students. And it takes away any ambiguity about whether or not this flexibility of the principals is limited to a whole school or individual students to address the needs of those students.
Thank you. Ms. Derenak Kofax?
Ms. Corbett Sanders summed it up well. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing as there are no other speakers, I will go ahead and take a vote on that amendment. All those in favor of the amendment as shown on the screen, please raise your hands. That vote is unanimous. We will now go back to the main motion. The motion is before us on the screen. Is there anyone wishing to speak to the main motion? Okay. I will just say thank you, recess moms. It's great to see you all. I miss our days of working at the state level and remember that fondly. Today, I told my fourth grader asked me what I do, so it was a great time to tell him, well, we're going to talk about middle school recess policy today. He was like, that's great. And then he was like, but wait, will you keep that? Just for me. So we will be keeping that just for him when he makes it to middle school. So I'm really excited. Thank you, Dr. Anderson, for continuing that work that Sandy started so long ago. And with that, Ms. Cohen.
Sorry, I would be remiss in all of the craziness. I know you don't want credit, but man, Dr. Ivy and Dr. Klemenko, you guys have gone back and forth 500 times to make this perfect and get everybody on board. And I know that Ms. Omeish said it earlier, but the whole meaningful change happens at the speed of trust, and you all have certainly earned that in spades from both the middle school principals and definitely the governance committee. So thanks for all the work.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. Motion is before us on the screen. All those in favor of approving, please raise your hands. And that is unanimous. Yay! I call on Dr. Anderson for a follow-on motion.
Goodness, I just love recess so very much.
No kidding.
I move to direct the superintendent to explore the provision of 2 15-minute recess periods for grade 6 students housed at Glasgow, Poe, and Holmes Middle Schools.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Barron. Would you like to speak to this?
I would very briefly, as I've said before, we have our 6th grade students who are at the middle school, and what I'm super excited about the fact that we've just passed 15 minutes for them. Other 6th grade students are receiving 30 minutes at their elementary schools. So I think we need to have an opportunity to explore the possibility of having recess equity.
Ms. Barrett.
Yeah, indeed, it is an equity issue, and I appreciate Dr. Anderson's advocacy not only for recess, but in looking at the structure of the Mason District middle schools. So this really is in line with that. Thank you.
Seeing as there are no other speakers, we will go ahead and take the vote for this follow-on. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that motion, that follow-on passes. Thank you. Agenda item 5.04, award of contract Falls Church High School renovation. I'll call on Dr. Anderson for the motion.
I move that the school board award a contract for the Falls Church High School renovation project to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Gunley Construction Company, Incorporated, in the amount of $133,575,000, and authorize the division superintendent or the assistant superintendent of facilities and transportation services to execute, deliver, and administer the contract on behalf of the school board.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Frisch. Dr. Anderson?
Yes, very briefly, I just really wanted to share that this project, I asked for it to be pulled off the agenda along with Mr. Frisch because we really owe a little bit of conversation to it rather than just on the consent agenda. This project has been a long time coming. It's been so overdue. The Falls Church community has been waiting for a very, very long time for this. And we had a little bit of a hiccup. There were a couple of presentations regarding the plan, and in February, a second plan was shared with the community that removed some of the much needed parking for the school and the community. And I have to recognize Ms. Paula Prettyman, who is right here in the audience, and her group of parents, who I think we saw the last time we were meeting. They really galvanized and organized and brought this to the attention of myself and Mr. Frisch. And we were able to work with Mr. Plattenberg, who I do want to thank for his speedy response to this issue, to be able to return back to the original plan without any delay. So I do want to say thank you to the parents who organized around this and also to staff for being responsive to the community's needs. And I know Mr. Frisch will cover the rest.
Mr. Frisch?
Thank you. As Dr. Anderson said most of it, but I do want to say that this is how the process in a roundabout way should work, that the community brings concerns to the board and the board weighs those concerns, works with staff to address them, and then communicates that back out. Excuse me. one thing I think we can all agree on is that we always need robust community engagement. And when we're dealing with these renovation projects or new school buildings being constructed, or when we're working on boundaries, we need to have a thoughtful and thorough approach to the way that we engage the community. And I think that Dr. Anderson and I are on the same page on this, that some good thinking could be brought to that issue with our support in the OCCR and our friends from CPDC and FPAC, as well as our friends in the community who have experienced what kinds of outreach is done, where it's worked, and where it's lacked. So we're getting a lot of benefit out of the conversation here, even though it was a difficult process to go through. And I very much appreciate the parents who were involved in this conversation. It was always respectful. It was always forceful, as it should have been. And I appreciate all of the work from our facilities team, who quickly pledged to make it sure that it would work, to meet the needs and meet the expectations that the community had. I remember before I was on the board, very quickly, back many years ago, one of my first things I did in 2019 before I was on the board is I went to a community meeting at Falls Church High School to see the first drawings of what the school would look like. And there were people in the community who still didn't believe it was going to happen because they've been waiting for that long. And this vote is putting our money where our mouth is, and it's proof that it's going to happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frisch. Ms. Keys-Gamarra?
I fully support this, but I just wanted to let the community know that we are working on making sure we get that robust communication process worked out. We're currently getting feedback from FPAC, and the Comprehensive Planning and Development Committee is working on it. We're getting input from staff, and we'll also reach out to OCCR, and then the board will have an opportunity to put it. So we are working on, I know that sounds like a lot of steps, but I think it will be better in the end because we will have touched everybody that will be involved in the process, and then we'll have fidelity of implementation across the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing as there are no other speakers, I will take the vote. The motion is before us on the screen. All those in favor? That is unanimous with Ms. Dernak Koufax and obviously Ms. McLaughlin away from the table. Okay. Agenda item 6, consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's rules provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Many items listed have gone through board review and documentation has been provided to all board members and the public in advance. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member prior to the meeting. Consent agenda items are on the screen. Is there an objection to approving the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Agenda item 7, new business. The following are new business agenda items. There will not be a vote on these items this evening, but action is scheduled at a future meeting. These new business items are on the screen. Agenda item 8, board committee reports, and I'll call on Ms. Keys-Gamarra for an Educate Fairfax update.
So this is going to replace anything else I would say tonight. This is it. So FCPS Hall of Fame, our Educate Fairfax has a new program that I wanted to make sure you guys know about and our community understands. Educate Fairfax, its staff and board, believes that our vibrant and successful school system is a big part of what makes Fairfax County a wonderful place to live and work. By highlighting our amazing graduates in the new program called the Hall of Fame, we are drawing the connection that tomorrow's stellar community leaders, business owners, and servant leaders are currently students in our schools right now. Educate Fairfax will make sure through this program that all of them have a path to success. This year's class of Hall of Fame inductees include a lifelong diplomat, a war hero, entrepreneurs, a lawyer, an inventor, a young published author and filmmaker, an Olympic athlete, and one of FCPS's leadership team. Winners were chosen through a vigorous vetting process, not quite as vigorous as a superintendent, involving 2 rounds of judging by the Educate Fairfax Board of Directors. The celebration will be May 4th, and more information can be found on the website. So we're looking forward to that exciting celebration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keys-Gamarra. And if there's no objection to my colleagues, I would like to suggest that we skip board matters tonight and we adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.